The Instruments of Darkness by Michael Robson, with Nigel Stock as Inspector Millions, Anthony Hall as Dynasty Shorecard, Elizabeth Proud as Melisande Lady Quandary, and Richard Handel as Porrit. The Instruments of Darkness.
My lord.
What is it, Porrit?
Breakfast is quite ready, my lord.
Why, thank you, Porrit.
Oh, what was that, my lord?
Another subsidence, I fear. It seems that our garden by the sea is diminishing rapidly. How long, I wonder, before the very foundations of the house be threatened?
I think the garden will outlive us all, my lord.
I pray you are right. For Dunwich has yielded much more than enough to the sea already. They say that when the tides are northerly, you can hear the bells of the sunken churches tolling for the dead, and for those yet to die.
Oh, I have heard that superstition, my lord, and prefer to disregard it.
I admire your sturdy common sense. I wish I could share it.
Good morning, Xerxes.
My dear girl. Had I known you were coming down for breakfast, I should have waited.
I am glad you did not, for I shall be eating nothing. A drink of tea will serve me well enough.
Are you perfectly yourself, Melisande? You appear fragile. Lovely, but fragile. Why those violet stains beneath your eyes?
I slept indifferently. The sea thundering against the cliffs awoke me. Thereafter I was troubled with unpleasant dreams.
How very discommoding.
Yes. Well, the sun is shining now and my spirits have somewhat risen. Does the Times have any interesting items of information this morning?
Do you know it does? I had scarcely begun reading of bizarre events at the Crystal Palace when you came into the room.
Bizarre events? How so?
Let me read you the report. The happy excitement attendant upon the forthcoming opening of the Crystal Palace in Hyde Park by Her Majesty the Queen and His Royal Highness Prince Albert has been marred by two inexplicable fatalities. 2 days ago, at 6:30 in the morning, a scaffolder, one Victory Tidd, was seen abruptly to collapse and fall heavily and headlong some 40 feet through glass and past girders to the floor of the Oriental Tea Room.
Oh, the poor creature.
But yesterday morning, an even more macabre death was to follow. During an informal visit by several members of Parliament, a man was seen lying motionless some 60 feet up in the branches of a sycamore tree, the centerpiece of an horticultural display. When the unfortunate person was eventually reached, it was found that his heart was savagely ruptured. Though by what agency, it has not yet been determined. The deceased... Great heavens!
Xerxes, what is it?
The deceased, who had become one of the most gifted landscape gardeners of the exhibition, has been named as Mr. Temperance Muldoon of Chelsea.
Muldoon? Ah!
Shorecard! Shorecard! Where is the lad? Confound him.
Coming, sir. At once, sir. On my way, sir. Well, sir, may I give you good morning, sir?
No, you may not, sir. Do you know where I have been this past hour, Shorecard? I have been closeted with the man upstairs. That man has seen fit to postpone my proposed holiday to Hove in favour of a new investigation. Are there not, I cried, other officers of the detective force who are capable of undertaking this work? But that man was adamant, lad, was obdurate as very agate. Millions must lead this investigation, he said, and millions must solve it within the fortnight before the royal couple open the exhibition at the Crystal Palace.
I'm glad to make your acquaintance, Inspector Millions, though I could wish the circumstances had been more congenial.
Indeed, Sir Joseph. Two dreadful shadows over the forthcoming exhibition. This is my assistant, Mr. Dynasty Surecard. Surecard, be gratified to meet Sir Joseph Paxton, prime planner of this remarkable edifice.
Gratified to be sure, Sir Joseph. And may I add, my sincere congratulations on this vast, though graceful spectacle.
Surecard, we have detected business to hand, and these felicitations must wait upon a more suitable occasion. I am sure Sir Joseph will concur.
Well, tell me how I may assist you, gentlemen, and assist you I will and shall.
Thank you, sir. Now, were the men Victory Tidd and Temperance Muldoon known personally to you?
Tidd I hardly knew at all, but I secured the services of Muldoon myself. He was a very considerable gardener. Tragic loss.
When did Muldoon enter upon his labours here?
8 months ago, almost to the day. He came to me with strong recommendations from his former employer, Xerxes, Lord Quandary of Paradox Park in the county of Suffolk.
Ah, thank you, sir. Now, both these men gave every satisfaction.
In all respects.
No hostile elements within the exhibition, sir? No internal jealousies or petty vindications?
None, to my knowledge. Nay, I may add that until these tragedies occurred, the very air of Hyde Park was supremely joyous.
Joyous, perhaps. Joyous, superficially. Yet homicide, sir, is my forte. And I think and believe my superiors would not have seen fit to cancel my proposed visit to Holmes for anything less instinct with horror than homicide.
To that end, Sir Joseph, our next call is upon Dr. Melchior Yolland, who examined the bodies of both Tidd and Muldoon.
But what more can you wish to know, Inspector? Your senior has copies of my report already.
Your reports do not make it clear, Dr. Yolland, if both Tidd and Muldoon were haled before the judgment seat by similar means.
Because the situations were quite different. Tidd fell through glass, glanced off girders, and suffered further injuries from shattering a sandalwood case containing 144 pounds of prime Darjeeling. Muldoon, on the other hand, was found dead in the fork of a sycamore 60 feet above the ground. His injuries were the more readily able to be studied.
Do you wish for the report, Inspector?
Thank you, lad. His diaphragm and lower ventricle had been shattered by what could have been, and I quote your words, Doctor, a missile projected with enormous force by some means quite unknown to this physician, since the missile, if such it was, could not be found among the organs of the deceased, nor, as I understand it, in or anywhere near the tree in which the death took place.
That is correct, sir. Those were my conclusions.
Then what of Victory Tidd? Aside of those injuries he sustained while falling, was there also evidence of any such wound as put paid to the unfortunate Muldoon?
I have already told you viva voce, and I have clearly written down that the injuries sustained by Tidd in falling were so many, so serious, and so various as to make it medically impossible to judge if the damage to the rib cage and heart had occurred before he began the fall, or no, I will not be moved from this opinion.
Then may I persuade you to abandon your Hippocratic stance for a moment and answer me as one citizen to another? What possible weapon might have killed Muldoon, or Muldoon and Tidd, without leaving any remnant behind?
Dr. Melchior Yolland was not the most amiable of surgeons, sir. I seem to detect, if you'll forgive the figure, a naked reluctance to further our inquiries.
I should like to thrash him, Surecard. Thrash him within an inch of his insolent life. That a lisping pedant like Yolland should by so much as half an hour delay my trip to Hove moves me to thoughts of assassination. My blood rages.
Your facial parts are indeed suffused, sir. Much more than is their wont.
But Surecard, Despite Yolland's criminal vacillation, I am of opinion that Tidd and Muldoon were killed by the same initial means and by the same hand.
Find what connects the two men, and we begin to trace a motive for their unseasonable parting from this world.
Ah, that's the hammer that drives the nail. Something linked them. Something much more desperate linked them than their adoration of horticulture at the Crystal Palace. Something that led them to seem of sufficient danger to a third party. That he was obliged to remove them post-haste. And to this end, Shortcard, do you direct your steps to Victory Tidd's place of residence in Clerkenwell. Be unswerving in your investigations, lad. Admit of no makeshift evasions. For my part, I shall visit Mrs. Caroline Muldoon at 4 Trincomalee Stairs in the borough of Chelsea.
But who could have killed Muldoon, Inspector? And who shall now support me along my faltering path to the grave? Not Temperance Muldoon, Inspector. That faithful heart is stilled, quite still.
My own heart bleeds for your condition, ma'am. It bleeds. It does, indeed. But certain facts must be established if we are to lay his murderer by the heels.
Oh, yes, sir, of course. I shall do my best to stem these weak and foolish tears. Ask on, sir, I pray.
Victory Tidd.
I'm very glad to hear it, sir, I'm sure.
You mistake me, ma'am. Victory Tidd, also engaged upon work at the Crystal Palace, died not 2 days earlier, in circumstances similar to those in which your husband brutally perished.
Oh!
Have you ever met Mr. Tidd, ma'am?
Never, sir, I swear. The name's all unknown to me.
Your husband never mentioned him?
Never, not once, I swear.
No written communications ever passed between them?
Letters, sir, do you mean? Oh, no, sir. Muldoon and me was obliterate, sir, you might say, from birth. I'm proud of it. We read the Book of Nature, sir. That was all the learning we cared for.
Your reverence for matters bucolic does you credit, ma'am. But as to that, what made your husband leave the employ of Lord Quandery in Suffolk, given his evident passion for those fecund acres, and seek his fortune here, in the filth and venom of the city?
I recall the moment precise and clear as an holy image, sir. I was in our little garden in Paradox Park one Sunday morning, a-picking a rhubarb, sir, for dinner. An excellent clarifier of the blood, Inspector, and one I recommend.
But what happened amongst the rhubarb, ma'am?
Oh, Muldoon comes up to me, and Caroline, my girl, he cries, 'tis time to go, time to be off and away. You're leaving Lord Quandery, I count as after so many green and comforting years. Leaving, says he, and with 10 golden guineas as a farewell present from his lordship. There, girl, what of that?
Your husband also bore letters of recommendation from Lord Quandery, I understand, with one of which he was able to secure employment at the Crystal Palace.
Such, sir, was the case. Oh, Inspector, what is that dreadful noise?
You have a caller, ma'am, I fancy. Shall you answer it, Mrs. Muldoon? Or will the caller wear out his knuckles on your door?
The door. 'Tis opening, Inspector. Are we to be slain in our beds, our sins still hot upon us?
In our beds, ma'am?
Shall I return later, sir?
Sure, Card. Why are you here and not in Clerkenwell, where your duty calls you?
No cash, sir, in brief.
No cash?
Pockets empty, purse idle, exchequer a yawning void.
Yawning voids in the course of an investigation? Is this the way to enhance your prospects of promotion, sure, Card?
Interrupting, as I did, a matter of some intimacy.
What the devil are you talking about, lad? What carnal follies does your mind conjure?
Talks of beds and sins as I entered upon.
No, your place, sure, Card. Entertain no more presumptions of that ilk. Mrs. Muldoon, was your husband called to higher service, leaving you in comfortable or indigent circumstances?
Oh, Muldoon was ever thoughtful, gents. This property's mine. I shall again be letting the upper rooms, and rental fees shall take care of my anguished widowhood.
Upper rooms? Did Mr. Muldoon let them out then, prior to his death?
Oh, yes, sir. Very discreet he was. Let to the quality, he said, engaged upon affairs of state.
Affairs of state, ma'am?
Shall I answer yourself, Inspector, or your young acquaintance, Mr. Deadshore?
Merely reply, Mrs. Muldoon.
Well, sirs, about 6 months after we come to London, Muldoon tells me he has been approached by a person or persons of rank, station, and breeding as to the use of certain rooms of quality and distinction. Evidently, 4 Trincomalee stairs suited these persons, and Muldoon was in receipt of a small but useful honorarium as a result.
And did you discover who the person or persons of rank, station, and breeding might be?
Mr. Surefire, I did not. I saw nothing of them, being out the house a good deal during the day.
But what of the night, ma'am?
The person or persons never stayed the night, sir. The person or persons seldom used the rooms at all.
Then do you think we might see these rooms, ma'am? An investigation there could prove highly pertinent. So, this is where affairs of state were conducted. Sniff your card. Sniff again. Well, does nothing assail your nostrils?
Some trace, some lingering fragrance.
Perfume, lad. Feminine perfume. Of the subtler sort.
Do you believe this to be in a place of assignation, sir?
I believe nothing. Yet. But perfume is certainly present. Hello?
What is it, sir?
Cast your eye across the street. Who do you observe skulking down there?
Fleet Ned Sprott.
Fleet Ned, the my-side informer. Have him sure card. I shall follow in my own time. But have it, lad. The truth from those rancid lips of his.
Fleet Ned!
Oh, my eye. Oh, my afflicted eye. The peelers.
Fleet Ned Sprott! A word with you, my dear.
I'm too old to live at the troubles like this. Once I did in sweet days of yore. My lungs is fair all out.
What have you?
God stop seeing me, Barber.
I won't.
Barber's me uncle. Owes me a squirrel.
I warn you.
Fleet Ned Sprott in the gutter again.
Can it be you, Mr. Million?
Bless you, Sprott. Don't breathe near my face.
You was always a sensitive man, Inspector.
Fleet Ned, talk. Avert your face, but talk. Of long afternoons in the upper rooms of 4 Trincomalee stairs.
Don't know it, sir. Never been near the place.
Leave there, don't waste my time. Time that could be far better spent in Hove, contemplating the raging billows of the main, than here in the gutter with you.
Adjust your memory, Ned. Don't cross him now. He's working to a fashion. 4 Trincomalee stairs. Abode of the late Mr. Temperance Muldoon and his relict Caroline. Who visited when said Mrs. M was about her artless business away from home?
Aye. He hesitates, your God. He gingerly proffers his hand. Now, what might Fleet Ned require?
The power of cash to stir the memory is wonderful to behold, gents. Beauteous to see.
Tuppence farthing if we hear the truth. A week in Chokey if you temporise.
Well, sirs, I've seen strange comings and goings at that abode of which you spoke but recent.
Strange?
A visitor come there perhaps 4 times, always of an afternoon, always with a key.
A visitor?
What kind of visitor?
High or low?
Whig or Tory?
Home or colonial?
Poor or rich?
Male
or female?
Of gender?
The faces was always wild, the physique slight and trim, the clothing obscure but costly, mode of awry walk, cab. I guess a young woman of uneasy virtue and considerable means, keeping of a Essex nation, or tryst.
You spoke to the cabbies, doubtless. Now, where would this young woman have hailed their services?
Regent Street, sir. Always Regent Street.
But why were you favouring that particular house with your attention, Fleetney?
Because Muldoon spent freely in the Four Ales, gentlemen, and I've undered whence a humble gardener come with such ready, such often cash.
My ribs ache, sure card. They torment me cruel. They inform me with a certainty born of 20 years with a detective that we are moving inexorably towards a perfect maelstrom of guilt and darkness. More devilry will surely follow these two murders.
Mr. Joint Schism. Mr. Edgar Joint Schism.
I am that man. And you, sir?
Nimble's Earthrowl, sir. And my partner, Danvers Gimlinge.
Earthrowl, Gimlinge. Quench your thirst, Neil, but listen. Only listen to what I have to propose.
We flinch from nothing, sir, save infanticide and basket weaving. Trust us for all else.
I like you, boys. I like your forthright manner. Good. The matter, lads, is robbery. But robbery it must be by total stealth. Stealth, boys, must be the game.
Leave us alone for stealth, sir. Only tell us the place, only the place, and what we are to remove.
Close. Come close. Very close, boys. Xerxes, Lord Quandary, and his lady wife are recently arrived once again in London to their townhouse in the borough of Marylebone. The house, good fellows both, is situate in Bentinck Street.
A rare neighbourhood, sir, and full of promise for lads of mettle.
The house is in Bentinck Street, and formerly the dwelling of one Edward Gibbon.
Gibbon the Welbeck Strangler, sir?
Edward Gibbon, who sang the varied fortunes of the Roman Empire in many an improving volume.
We are to remove a library, sir?
Merely cease your interruptions and you shall learn what it is you are being paid to steal.
But you are still pale, Melisande. Was I right to bring you to London?
I was troubled by a recurrence of that dream that has disturbed so many of my slumbers at Paradox Park. But last night it was so real that I thought it must actually have happened here in Bentinck Street.
So real?
I thought I heard a long, hoarse scream of fear, a great clattering, then a dreadful, a most harrowing noise, as if someone had struck ground after falling from a desperate height.
My treasure, you are still dwelling upon the spectacular and tragic deaths of poor Muldoon and the man Tidd. But if you are to know any tranquility whatsoever, you must put these thoughts behind you.
Forgive me, my lord, but there is a person from the detective wishing to see you. The name of Inspector Millions.
From the detective, Porritt? What can he possibly want of Lord Quandary?
I shall see him at once, Porritt.
Very good, my lord.
Should you repair to your room, Melisande, and recruit your strength in quiet?
No, of course not. It behoves us to meet such a celebrity with the liveliest interest.
Inspector Millions, my lord.
Thank you, Porritt. That will be all.
Your ladyship.
Inspector.
Lord Quandary, most grateful for this signalled opportunity.
My dear Inspector, whatever we can do, we shall do, to aid you in your inquiries relevant to Temperance Muldoon.
How swiftly, sir, you bring your lofty intellect to play upon the matter in hand. But why, given his wholesome devotion to all things rural, did Muldoon choose to quit his toils amid your dunnage sanctuary and make for London?
How often have I asked myself that self-same question, sir?
And what was your reply, my lord?
Why, I was at a loss for an answer.
Ah, so no reason offers itself. He just ups and leaves.
A forceful and a cogent description of his exit from my employment.
Thank you. Now, his wife... was she a prima mobile in the Muldoon's urban adventure?
Caroline, that most genuine, that warmest-hearted of natures.
Rhubarb was her one excess. She was else the completest of helpmeets.
The rhubarb, I well recall. You parted then from the Muldoons on the best of terms. 10 guineas for the gardener and letters of recommendation.
Accurate in each particular, sir.
You can think then of no person or persons who might have harboured such resentment against Muldoon as to have accomplished his assassination?
None, sir. The world was his friend. The meadow sang to his tread, and all creation flowered beneath his sunshine blandishments.
Then that shall be the superscription to his eternal resting place. Do you, my Xerxes, arrange it this very day?
Yes.
Come, sir. Haste, post, haste from Clerkenwell, from the innocent alleys of Victory Tid.
Innocent? A dangerous word to use in my presence, Sugarcard.
In the course of 2 long days and nights, I've discovered the late Victory Tid to have been a man of such startling virtue that I confess myself amazed he was not summoned to his eternal reward at birth. That poor fellow, sir, had not an enemy in the land. No eye recalling him but fills with tears.
I feared as much. Tid blameless, Muldoon apparently so, aside of that mysterious visitor in Chelsea. So, where now, Sugarcard? Where direct our path from this facer?
At the moment when Muldoon was first glimpsed, dead in the branches of the sycamore tree at the horticultural exhibition area, no fewer than 5 members of Parliament was present, in addition to the official guide.
Continue, lad.
The political gents in question was Mr. Cosmo Evergreen, Mr. Hatchard Millicent, Sir Jericho Arbogast, Mr. Nathaniel Upjohn, and the Laird of Yell.
Pretty enough crew, and we shall talk to them, everyone. Sugarcard, present yourself to the esquires of the party. For my part, I shall address my inquiries to the quality, Yell and Arbogast. Don't look so crestfallen, lad. Your turn with the titles will come when your toes are more securely placed upon the higher rungs of constabulary promotion. I observe, Mr. Rossiter, that your master, Sir Jericho, seems devoted to the rigours of the chase.
That observation is founded on hard facts, sir. The master has roamed in many of Hurth's swayed quarters in search of trophies. From the ice savannas of colonial Guyana to the echoing loneliness of the great Karoo, his guns has known little rest these past 12 years.
But he still finds time for a useful day or two in the service of the House of Commons.
Neglect of his constituents is not a charge as can be levelled against Sir Jericho, sir. Sleepless he is in his efforts to bring his peoples to the land of Pisgah.
Naughty, sir! Show the inspector in at once. Busy men have need of punctuality.
Obliged to you, Sir Jericho. Thank ye, Rossiter.
Your humble, sir. Ever your humble hen, obedient.
Inspector Millions, what an enchantment it is to meet a sleuth of your pronounced and often proven brilliance. Throw yourself into a chair, sir, if you please.
I acknowledge with gratitude that handsome tribute from so discerning a baronet as yourself, Sir Jericho.
Well deserved, sir. Richly deserved. But how may I further your investigations?
I spoke recently to the Laird of Yell. My assistant has spoken recently to the other members of that parliamentary party that visited the Crystal Palace. So far, all statements taken point to the fact that at no time were the members of the party separated from their guide and mentor. Would you corroborate this, Sir Jericho?
Do you know, I believe I would. Yes, we were at all times within earshot of our delightful and informative Cicerone.
Of course you were. Of course you were. Had you perchance any prior knowledge of the gardener, Muldoon?
Would a gentleman have knowledge of an artisan?
Yet I believe, sir, that you are not unacquainted with Xerxes, Lord Quandary, and his wife, Lady Melisande, within whose purlieus the dead Muldoon once enjoyed many a happy and not unrewarded season of employment.
What a stern taskmaster it is, Inspector. Yes, I knew Muldoon was once employed by Quandary, but not once did I meet the fellow face to face.
I perfectly understand, Sir Jericho. Why should you, a baronet and rover, have first-hand knowledge of a lowly son of toil? Sugarcard.
Inspector,
I have spoken to the Laird of Yell and to the dashing Sir Jericho Arbogast. They maintain that the parliamentary party observing the Crystal Palace was all of a piece all the time.
Yet Mr. Cosmo Evergreen allowed that from time to time individual members of the party would stray as a fancy took them to an exhibit here or an area there.
So, here is an inconsistency.
Innocent or intended?
At present I fail to see why any of these parliamentarians would wish to kill two artisans, and... Why are you looking so wan?
We've had a note, sir, from Meldrum's cellar in Rotherhithe. A corpse was recovered from the Thames early this morning. Would you care to examine it?
Come in, gents, come in.
Why did you choose to summon me, Meldrum? The bodies fall in the Thames as thick as autumnal leaves, and they are none of my concern.
But this one, sir... This one bears the marks of horror and unspeakable violence.
Does it, though? Remove the sheet, if you please, Meldrum.
Bear with my warning, gents. This corpse is fair broke up, though the face has miraculously survived shattering.
It's Nimbles Earthrowl.
A gent well known to you, Inspector?
I put Earthrowl in jail as often as I put on my boots. And now he has made his last atonement.
Oh, this is the most horrible slaying, sir. His every bone looks broken.
Oh, ugly, lad. Ugly work. There's not, I think, within our bailiwick. Not relevant to the Crystal Palace death.
Any papers? Any personal possessions on the corpse, Meldrum?
As to that, sir...
Meldrum, I warned you before about a pilfering from the dead.
As to that, sirs, I found but one scrap of paper within a lining of the deceased waistcoat, sirs. Wet it was, all sodden, after some hours' immersion in the Queen of Rivers.
Give it here. It could be part of an envelope. And the name... Oh, confound it, this is a crab fist. Sure, guard. Turn your eyes to this.
Looks to be a Mrs. Glumdalclitch Osborne, of Clapham Common, sir.
Glumdalclitch Osborne? What creature would own to a name like that? Clapham Common this time of year is undeniably attractive, Shulcard. Man could do worse than buy a genteel property here against his ultimate retirement from the detective.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, sirs.
Have I the pleasure of addressing Mrs. Osborne?
That pleasure is yours, sir.
Mrs. Grumbleabitch Osborne.
The same, sir. And who?
Inspector Millions and Mr. Shurcard of the detective, ma'am.
The detective? Are you the bearers of ill news, Inspector?
That we have yet to determine, ma'am. But might we conduct our colloquy within doors?
Of course, pray forgive me.
You seemed apprehensive, ma'am, when I announced our identities. Why would this be?
Apprehensive? Why, yes, I am.
Care to enlighten us, ma'am?
My husband has been away for almost 3 days now, and still no word from him.
Mr. Osborne don't normally stray from hearth and home.
My husband is not called Osborne, sirs. To my shame, I must confess it.
But how may this be, ma'am?
Our union has not been blessed by Mother Church, sirs. We are as one in common law, but not under the eye of heaven.
Would your protector's name be Earthrowl, ma'am? Why do you start so?
Earthrowl? But Mr. Earthrowl is a recent partner of my protector's in a small but energetic plasterer's business, sir.
Plasterers? Earthrowl? Madam, I know 2 things about Nimbles Earthrowl. 1, he was a thief. 2, he is now stone dead.
And stone dead hath no fellow.
But if Mr. Earthrowl is stone dead, and my husband be not returned, can the same fate have overtaken him too?
You say your husband has not been home for 3 days, ma'am. Incidentally, what is your husband's name?
Gimlinge, sir. Danvers Gimlinge, and as good a man as ever drew breath.
Then why did he not make an honest woman of you?
Because, sir, he... already has a wife and daughter, though he has not set eyes on them for 20 years.
And this man is now a plasterer?
He and Mr. Earthrowl were employed upon some work in Marylebone, as I understand it.
And his partner in plaster or felony, call it what you will, now lies dead in Meldrum Cellar at Rotherhithe. Dead terribly. Dead appallingly. But dead indubitably.
Oh. Mrs. Osborne, should your self-styled husband, Mr. Danvers Gimlinge, repair back to the comfort of his parlour, would you be so kind as to tell him to report straightway to Inspector Millions? His life, dear lady, may hang in the balance.
If yet it hangs at all. Madam, we must leave you. From this ambiguous state we must return to my office. Be assured we shall see you again.
Oh, sirs, may I not offer you a glass of sherry wine? My father left me 86 bottles when he passed on, and some few are still left.
Regretfully, ma'am, we must hail a cab and be off. But one last question.
Sir?
Why the devil did your father call you Glumdalclich?
My father, the late Uttoxeter Osborne, was many things in his life. Drunkard, glass blower, symbolist, naval architect, sonneteer, pederast, and Muslim scholar. But his greatest devotion was to that preeminent work of the ill-starred genius Jonathan Swift. Uttoxeter Osborne, gentlemen, was addicted to Gulliver's Travels. Hence, Glumdalclich.
Glumdalclich?
And how, sir? It's called Glubdubdrib.
My mind is bent on murder, lad. We are juggling with several plates at once. They must be identified immediately before we lose control and they fall unremarked to earth.
Very well, sir. Shall we examine the plates singly? Item. 8 months ago, Temperance Muldoon quits the employment of Xerxes Lord Quandary in Suffolk.
To seek his arable fortunes in London.
Item. A week ago, an innocent named Victory Tidd falls to his death in the Crystal Palace with prior injuries as yet unexplained.
Item. Shortly afterwards, Temperance Muldoon is discovered dead in the branches of a sycamore tree in the Crystal Palace, with mortal injuries as yet unexplained.
Item. Muldoon lets out the upper rooms of his dwelling in Chelsea,
which are infrequently visited. Visited. Afternoons only, by a veiled lady of seemingly independent means.
Item. Nimbles Earthrowl, cutpurse, pickpocket and bully boy goes into plasterer's business with an ex-sailor Danvers Gimlinge.
Item. Earthrowl and Gimlinge disappear to undertake labour in Marylebone.
Item. Xerxes Lord Quandary returns to London to his home in Bentinck Street in the borough of Marylebone.
Item. Nimbles Earthrowl is dragged out of the Thames, dreadfully done to death.
Item. Danvers Gimlinge is accomplished. He's vanished.
Item. Gimlinge we must find, sure card. Gimlinge we must by all means secure.
Gimlinge, yeah, man.
Mr. Joint Schism.
Who else?
St. Paul's Cathedral. A pretty enough place to conduct our business, sir.
The noble sentiments we hear may pour an unction on that business, Gimlinge.
Yes, well, I have ill news, Mr. Joint Schism.
You were unable to steal the correspondence from Lord Quandary's home?
We stole it, sir, yes. Earthrowl came out of that upper window with the bundle in his hand. Passed it on to me before attempting to effect his descent by the drain pipe. But there was a commotion within the house. Voices raised. Candles are flickering and the sound of approaching footsteps. And in that instant, Nimbles Earthrowl's natural skill deserts him. He misses his footing and falls some 60 feet to a desperate, shattered fate in the courtyard below.
So he was found by Quandary's staff in the article of death?
He was not. I went down the side of that house like a frantic ape, sir. Collected the mortal remains of Earthrowl and was out of the rear door before the staff were fully aroused.
And how did you dispose of the body?
Into the Thames, sir. With only a gruff sailor's prayer to speed him on his last voyage.
You did well, Gimlinge. There can be no unforeseen connections between us and the late Earthrowl, and the full fee of the robbery will be all yours.
The fee, sir, is something we must discuss at length, be we in the house of the Lord or not.
You would turn renegade?
I did not realise when we undertook to burgle Lord Quandary's house the nature of the correspondence we should remove.
It is compromising.
Utterly.
Well then,
It compromises Lord Quandery, sir, and it also compromises a lady whose reputation I shall stop at nothing to protect.
What's your pleasure, Inspector?
Gin and water, if you please, Job, and a bowl of snuff.
Sir?
Well, lad?
Sir, interesting intelligence from Clapham Common.
I shall hope so, lad. Keep your voice down. You've loitered there long enough. Well, see, I shall have to buy you a drink.
A glass of claret would do very well, sir, and I appreciate the thought.
Claret? Well, you'll drink your beer and like it, boy.
Beer be admirable, sir, most quenching.
Gin, water, snuff, sir.
And beer for this young fellow.
And beer for Mr. Surecard.
Snuff, Mr. Surecard?
No, thank you, sir.
Then tell me, what have you learned at Clapham Common?
Miss Glumdalclitch Osborne as a child, sir. A daughter of some 17 summers.
The devil she does.
Name of Daffodil, sir. An enchanting creature, and one not slow to indulge in lively conversation with an officer of detective incognito.
Oh, what did you learn?
She corroborated a statement given by Miss Glumdalclitch. Nor hide nor hair of Danvers Gimlinge has been seen since he went off 3 days ago on his plastering expedition to Marylebone with Nimble's earthroll.
Here's your beer, lad.
Your health, sir.
Well, it would seem... A broad swing of coincidence if Gimlinge and Earthrowl were in any way involved with Lord Quandery, but one that must, in default of anything better, be examined. Drink up your beer, lad, for I want you back at Clapham Common, ready to apprehend for questioning this Danvers Gimlinge, should he return to,
Glubdubdrib, sir.
Should he... Glubdubdrib, yes. But loiter in the shadows, Surecard. Do not attempt further intercourse with the doubtless winsome Daffodil Osborne. Hover in the dark, and should Gimlinge return, then pounce.
May I ask, sir, where you will direct your steps?
To Bentinck Street. A word with Lord Quandery's butler may ease my mind.
I fail to see your drift, Inspector.
Nimble's Earthwell was a cat burglar, Surecard. No plasterer he. So could it be that he and Gimlinge were suborned to burgle Lord Quandery's house? Could Earthrowl have met his desperate shattered death whilst attempting to effect some felony at 7 Bentinck Street? Capital, Mr. Porritt, capital. Glad to see your high spirits have not been quelled by the recent depredations on this property.
Depredations, Inspector? What depredations would they be?
Well, I think they're breaking on the premises.
These premises, sir?
Assuredly.
You jest, Inspector.
Though my mien be jocund, my intentions are profoundly sober. I do assure you, Mr. Porritt. Was this house not burgled 3 nights ago?
But, sir, had we been burgled, you may be sure we should have lost no time in raising the hue and cry.
Of course you wouldn't. Might we take the air in the yard a moment, sir? I have something of a headache on me. Too much gin and insufficient water at the Gallow Glass Arms, eh?
Why, certainly, Inspector. The yard is not large, but as you see, it gives onto the mews.
The air of Marylebone at night is sweet and piercing, Porritt, even to these dull nostrils. Hello? What would this be, here, on the ground? Dried blood, Mr. Porritt, in some quantity.
The odd man slaughters the chickens here, sir. I regret he has not cleaned the Augean stables as thoroughly as he should.
I hope you're not trifling with me, sir.
Trifling, sir?
Will you swear that this is the blood of poultry and not of a human being?
Inspector, your humour tends to the graveyard this evening, does it not?
The instincts of my profession seldom desert me, Mr. Porritt. Would you tell me this? Is Sir Jericho Arbogast, sportsman and Member of Parliament, a frequent visitor here?
Why, bless you, sir, as regular as clockwork. He and his lordship have been intimate these 10 years or more.
Oh.
Lord Quandary looks upon Sir Jericho as a son.
And does the Lady Melisande look upon him as a brother?
But, Mr. Shawcard, why will you not wait inside at Blood Crib? I'm certain my father, when he returns, will be only too ready to apprise you of the facts that led to Mr. Earthrow's death.
Oh, Mr. Gimlinge may be less ready than you think to talk to an officer of the detective, Miss Daffodil. I fear I must surprise him. Now, please, return to your home. Miss Osborne will be anxious on your...
Oh, look! Is not that sagging figure that of my father? There! Over there! Coming through the wood!
You know far better than I, Miss Daffodil. Is it he?
I have the most dreadful misgivings. Why does he move so slowly, so warily?
Drunk, perhaps?
My father is no tosspot, sir. Oh, see! He has fallen!
Then we must approach him at once.
Oh, Papa, dearest Papa, whatever has happened to you?
Daffodil, flower of my heart. Oh, gaze your last upon your unfortunate father.
Mr. Gimlinge, I am a member of the detective. Who has done this fearful injury to you?
A man named Joint Schism. Edgar Joint Schism. Oh, God, I die upon the hour.
Please, this Joint Schism, was he a footpad?
A gent. Tall he was, well-spoken, dark hair, dark moustaches, and black of eyes. He smoked me, sir, under the 5th rib.
And Earthrow? Did Joint Schism kill him, too?
Earthrow was...
I shall find his murderer, Miss Daffodil. I shall not rest till I have found this Edgar Joint Schism. And when I have found him, I shall see him swing for this foul mischief.
You rang, my lord?
Porritt, I understand that Inspector Millions was here last evening.
He was, my lord.
Then why was I not informed when her ladyship and I returned from the opera?
He was quite satisfied, sir, that once his interview with me was over, he need not trouble your lordship.
But what did he want?
He was, investigating a possible burglary, my lady.
Burglary? Where?
Here, my lady.
Here?
But I assured him that 7 Bentinck Street has never been the scene of night marauding, my lady, and he went away agreeable and content, having sampled a little of my rum and tobacco first.
Porritt, dear, faithful fellow, well done. Well played, indeed.
Pleasure was all mine, my lord.
A caller? At this time of day?
With your permission, my lord, I shall ascertain the identity of the caller.
Of course.
Xerxes, in my dreams the other evening, I had visions of some burglary. That dreadful scream.
And it was nothing but a nightmare, Melisande. I thought I had reassured you on that score. Had there been a burglary, I should have summoned officers of the police at once. Perhaps some unfortunate dweller on the street close by had been the victim of... Yes, Porritt.
Sir Lucifer Hipkin has called, my lord. He is desirous of a few minutes' conversation with you.
Hipkin, that blackguard. What does he want of me?
He said a few minutes' conversation would reveal the urgent nature of his call, my lord.
Melisande, will you excuse us? This must be some pressing parliamentary business, a division, perhaps.
I shall go to the withdrawing room directly. But, Xerxes, pray do not distress yourself unnecessarily. Sir Lucifer is not worth any anxiety whatsoever.
How perceptive you are. And, my dearest, I shall be with you soon. Very well, Porritt. Show Sir Lucifer in.
Yes. Yes, Shawcard.
It's a Mr. Porritt, sir, from Lord Quandary.
Oh, what could this presage? Show the butler in, lad. Show him in.
This way, sir.
Mr. Porritt.
Good evening, sir.
Stay, Shawcard.
Sir?
Your eyes are red, Mr. Porritt, and your cheeks hectic.
Oh, sir, Lord Quandary has asked me to beg you to attend upon him immediately.
Why could the noble lord not come here in person?
That, sir, is unknown to me. I have a cab waiting, Inspector, for your convenience.
That being so, I am prepared to accommodate his lordship. Surecard, your hat, and mine. My ribs foretell a sudden end to many of our questionings.
You were quick upon the summons, Inspector, and I thank you for it.
I am eager to learn what you have to impart, Lord Quandary. This is my assistant, Mr. Surecard.
Your servant, sir.
Mr. Surecard. Will you be seated, gentlemen?
Thank you, my lord. Sit, lad. Don't gape there.
What I have to reveal, Inspector, is both tragic and terrible. You have a cold, sir?
A lively nose, my lord. Pray continue.
My disclosure will shed light on much that has hitherto lain in the shadows of horror and suffering. But let me begin with Temperance Muldoon.
Your erstwhile gardener?
As you are already aware, Muldoon left my employment on the best of terms to seek work in London. Well then, some 6 months later, he came to see me here at Bentinck Street. Alas, no pleasantries were to be exchanged, Inspector. Muldoon had turned blackmailer.
But all the world knows that the House of Quandary is above suspicion.
I thank you for that, sir, but unhappily it is not true. Muldoon, that fearful wretch, had discovered something regrettable in my past. He wanted money, gentlemen, in return for his silence.
Enough, perhaps, to purchase a house in Chelsea?
I paid him a pretty sum, Mr. Surecard. Then he wanted more.
Blackmail never does.
I realized he could and would go on and on with his insatiable demands until I was ruined. I became desperate.
You did not think of confiding in the police?
One breath of scandal, and my looked-for position as Foreign Secretary would forever be lost.
So you thought to silence Muldoon yourself?
Inspector, I am more than 60 years of age, a man with some infirmities. How could I compete in physical conflict with the brute strength of a man of the soil, a man almost 30 years my junior?
So you hired the services of a desperado?
Just so. I did not want Muldoon murdered, Inspector. You must believe that. I merely wanted him terrified. Yes, I hired a desperado and told him what I required. I described Muldoon thoroughly. His appearance, his habit, his place of work. I paid the fellow 100 guineas in advance. The fellow, hasty, anxious to have done with his odious work, did not pay sufficient attention to my instructions. To my horror, I read in the Times that 2 men had died.
I can imagine your consternation.
I hastened to London, intending to denounce the desperado, but he had forestalled me. When we arrived here, I found a sealed letter waiting for me. I was to meet him at 11 that night upon Westminster Bridge.
One question, sirs, if I may.
Sure, Colonel.
It does have bearing, sir, on the matter in hand.
Does it, lad?
My lord, what was the name of this assassin?
Why, he gave his name as Earthrow.
What?
Nimble's Earthrow.
Sure, God. My apologies.
The name Earthrow is known to you, gentlemen?
It is indeed, my lord. Intimately. But pray proceed to that sinister interview upon the bridge at 11 p.m.
It was a foul and foggy night, when a man could scarcely see his hand in front of his face. I reached the bridge and peered down, vainly hoping to descry some cheering ray of light from the brigs and colliers anchored below. But light there was none. Only the steady footfall of someone approaching me through that grim blanket of obscurity. It was Earthrow, pale as snow, but red of eye. I taxed him bitterly with the deaths of Muldoon and Tidd. The wretch laughed and said that his services demanded compensation greater than I so far afforded. I threatened to denounce him. He made to attack me. But in the struggle, that demon lost his balance, over-toppled, and was gone, down into the Thames, lost forever from the world of men.
Yet you did not see fit to report this incident.
Inspector, I was too distracted to think of anything but to repair back to Bentinck Street and restore my wits.
Have you had a visitor recently, Lord Quandery?
I beg your pardon?
A visitor to this house, to this room, recently.
No, I have not, sir. Why do you ask?
Do you smoke, my lord?
Smoke, sir? I abhor the practice. No one smokes in any household of mine.
So you have had no visitor here this evening?
Damn, sir, I have not. And of what relevance is that to my recent disclosure?
Forgive me, my lord. You are aware, I imagine, that you will have to accompany me to the office, where a formal statement may be taken from you.
I am aware of that. If you will give me 2 minutes, I shall collect the necessary statements myself. They are already set down and witnessed.
2 minutes, my lord, are negligible. We shall attend you here.
Thank you.
Shortcard.
Sir?
Hover, lad. Hover in the hall. I want no midnight chases.
Sir.
Shortcard!
Paper must study, sir.
In there! Quick as you like!
Too late, sir! Ah, too late! The master is dead! Self-slaughter!
Confirm, Shortcard!
Sir?
Porrit, a word in your ear.
Yes, sir.
Porrit, did you admit a visitor to his lordship shortly before you came to my office this evening? A visitor who smoked Havana cigars?
No, sir. No visitors at all today, apart from you two gentlemen of the detective.
What a spectacle Hyde Park presents, sir. And the Crystal Palace in its pristine magnificence. The flower of the nation, of the empire, nay, dare I say it, the flower of the world, assembled here for the opening of this most majestic of man's works. And thanks in no small part to you, sir.
Tobacco, Shortcard. Cuban tobacco.
Sir?
Amid these festive imbecilities, lad, have you given a thought to the singular aroma of Cuban leaf tobacco?
You have me on the hips, sir, and I confess it.
I smelt that aroma in Quandery's study the night of his confession. Yet he abhorred smoking, both he and Porrit, denied the presence of any visitor that day.
But the case is over, is it not? And you should be enjoying the delights of Hove, if not this present spectacle.
But think, lad, why should Quandery confess when the only 2 men, Muldoon and Earthrow, who could assail his reputation, were both stone dead?
Well, conscience, sir, Lord Quandery admitted as much himself.
And you were hoodwinked?
But if the confession was in some way spurious, then which way now do your thoughts incline?
There was no reason for Quandery's confession and suicide unless another foot stumbled upon its secrets. Another so high in rank or power that his removal could never go uninvestigated. Another who smoked Havana cigars and visited Lord Quandery some minutes before Porrit was dispatched to my office. Another who threatened Quandery with public obloquy unless he put an end to his wretched and conniving life.
Yes, sir. I anxiously await.
Consider, Shortcard, our earlier hypothesis, viz. that Earthrow and Gimlinge were effecting together a burglary of Quandery's house in Bentinck Street. Now, Earthrow, as we were told, fell off Westminster Bridge and hit the river with bone-shattering impact, and his injuries could bear out that story.
But Gimlinge was stabbed, as he averred with his latest breath, by one Edgar Joint Schism. A gent. Tall he was, well-spoken, dark-haired, dark moustache and black of eyes.
I wonder, lad, if Joint Schism smokes Havana cigars.
No hawkers, no harlots, no fishmongers.
Inspector Millions and Dynasty Shortcard of the detective.
The detective?
Mr. Cletworthy.
Your servant.
Mr. Peebles Cletworthy.
You're ineffable.
Mr. Peebles Cletworthy, discriminating diarist and social historian.
You're idiosyncratic.
Who knows more about the Mother of Parliaments than Mr. Speaker himself?
You're eternally gratified.
It is of the lower house that we wish to inquire, sir. Kindly remove that arquebus from your shoulder and invite us to your study.
Damn you, Clara. Cease your impertinence. Clara, sirs, is a lawless cat, hence her hatred of the detective. You were asking?
The defunct Lord Quanderay, sir. I understand he had ambitions for the post of Foreign Secretary.
True.
What obstacles lay in his path?
Who opposed him, you mean? But, sir, both chambers have been full of the gossip all year. Sir Lucifer Hipkin was chief contender for that position. Now, with poor old Xerxes done in, Sir Lucifer is first in line for the post you mentioned.
Sir Lucifer Hipkin.
Your manners, Clara.
This Sir Lucifer. A tall and black-of-eyes knight, would he be? Dark hair, dark moustaches?
Hipkin to the echo, Mr. Safeguard.
Obliged, sir.
There was then within Parliament outright rancour between Lord Quanderay and Sir Lucifer Hipkin.
The venom crackled, sir, like a child's limbs in an open fire.
And is this Hipkin to be found in London?
A man incessantly vain of his physique, sirs. He occupies himself daily at Master Parmesan's fencing academy in Regent Street.
The bold course is our only course, your cards. Sir Lucifer Hipkin. Is Sir Lucifer Hipkin present in this academy?
Oh, Joseph disturbing me.
Sir Lucifer?
Was that him?
Allow me to introduce myself, sir. Cumberbatch is the name, Sir Lucifer. And this is my son, young Dynasty. Devotees, both of your matchless steel.
Devil you are.
As we stood and watched you confound your opponent, sir, with lunge, incart, and tierce, riposte and recovery following one another in swift succession, we realized at once that we were in the presence of a master swordsman.
Did you, Joe? And I wish you'd say it like to Master Parmesan, sir.
A cigar, sir? Allow me to present you with a cigar.
Havana. It's uncommon civil of you, sir.
My pleasure, sir, and my honour. And to congratulate you also on the quick dispatch of that scoundrel Gimlinge.
Gimlinge? What's he to you?
He perished, sir, with your name on his lips. Cut to death, he cried, and proud of it, by the rapier of Lucifer Hipkin.
What's that? Who in damnation are you, fellas?
It is who you are that interests us, Sir Lucifer, for in certain parts of the city you are better known as Edgar Joint Schism.
Sir Jericho Arbogast, milady.
Oh, show him in, Porrit. Do show Sir Jericho in.
At once, your ladyship.
Melisande.
Jericho! Oh, my dear.
My darling. Oh, what an extraordinary turn events have taken. Your husband dies confessing to the suborned murders of Tid and Muldoon and to the accidental slaying of Earthrowl, and today Sir Lucifer Hipkin admits to the murder of the man Gimlinge. What an almanac of horrors for London. But how fortunate for we two.
Oh, my sweet. Oh, can our path to happiness lie across a meadow filled with corpses?
They lie in the past, Melisande. Together we can surmount these horrors and be united at last. Oh, my dearest, on my knees I beg you to become my wife at last, no longer the admired consort of another.
Oh, Jericho, you know too well how little I cared for Xerxes, how abominably he treated both myself and our son, little Gareth. Yet even at his most delinquent, Xerxes was possessed of some shreds of goodness, and I somehow believe that this terrible suicide of his was meant as an atonement for the unhappiness he had heaped upon me.
He was a monster.
Oh, not when I married him. He was bright and affectionate and generous.
You are all too well aware of how vicious and depraved the man really was.
I have lived with him for 8 years as his wife. I have borne him a son. I have known amidst years of misery some moments of happiness.
Melisande, do you love me?
With all my heart.
Then pray forswear your grief for that libertine and agree to become my wife, proudly proclaimed as such, and as soon as we decently may in the finest church this city boasts of.
Stop that stridulation, Surecard, before I truss your tongue.
Jen was indifferent last night, sir.
Damn your impertinence, lad. Damn it, I say.
Oh, forgive me for asking, sir, but ask I must.
Well...
Why are you here and not in Hove, whence your thoughts have inclined these past 6 months?
Hove?
The strange affair is over, sir. You've explained all. Sir Lucifer, wishing to oust Lord Quandary from his position as heir apparent to the post of Foreign Secretary, assumed the nom de guerre of Edgar Jointskism. He paid Earthrowl and Gimlinge to burgle Quandary's home and find proof of some past misdemeanour. This was done, but Earthrowl was silenced by Lord Quandary, and Gimlinge was mortally wounded by Sir Lucifer himself, that no third party might discover the real facts. Then Sir Lucifer called on Lord Quandary, smoking a Havana cigar, and confronted the trembling peer with written evidence of some scandal. Quandary promised to resign his political hopes in return for Sir Lucifer's silence, and afterwards, recognising the terrible web of guilt he had himself helped to spin, sent for us. Having admitted conniving at the murders of Tid and Muldoon at the Crystal Palace, he engaged himself in the possibly accidental death of Earthrowl. He wished to spare his wife, his family and the country further scandal, and did away with himself.
And that is what the public is being asked to accept by the man upstairs.
Asked to accept, sir?
The existing scandal is such as to threaten the government already. Further revelations would lead to its complete overthrow, and so the man upstairs has directly instructed me to consider the case or cases irrevocably closed.
Then you may depart for Hove at once.
Will you stop harping on Hove?
A thought of some other resort, perhaps? Bognor Regis? West Hartlepool?
Surecard. How? Where? Tid and Muldoon? Killed? Physically? How?
Does it matter, sir? Earthrowl was their executioner, and Earthrowl is dead.
Do you seriously believe that a man of Earthrowl's spectacularly low intellect could have conceived two murders so brilliant, so terrible, and so inexplicable as to baffle forensic science? If so, the investigative career is not for you, lad. Now come, let's be off.
A new case, sir?
The old case is officially closed, Surecard, so we shall pay an entirely social visit to that colourful and gallant traveller, Sir Jericho Arbogast.
Inspector Million's hand, Mr. Shawcard, Sir Jericho. Milady.
And how capital. Inspector, Mr. Shawcard, may I extend my congratulations to you both on a successful outcome to this tragic and complex affair. Oh, but forgive me, you have met, of course, Melisande, Lady Quandary?
Indeed we have met, Jericho. Gentlemen, I am pleased that this occasion is something happier than the last occasion upon which we had conversation together.
Happier, milady?
Oh, we must tell them. I shall tell them. I can no longer contain my greatest good fortune. Inspector, Mr. Brasenose, Lady Quandary has agreed to cut short her normal period of mourning in order to make me the most divinely happy of mankind.
We are to be married, sirs, on Wednesday next, at the Church of St. Matthew Carborundum in the city of Westminster.
And I insist that you both be present, though whether as my guest or Lady Quandary's, I have no mortal idea.
Then may we congratulate you on this moment of social harmony and decent joy.
Too kind, Mr. Harpcard. And I am sure you will give us the added pleasure of pledging that harmony and joy in a toast.
You rang, Sir Jericho?
I did, Nossiter, I did. Would you prepare a libation, a special libation for our guests and ourselves?
On the instant.
Nossiter.
Sir?
I believe, Nossiter, that you were brought up in Hove.
You see before you a proud son of Hove, sir, to be sure.
Then may I accompany you a moment, Nossiter? Hove interests me strangely. If Lady Quandery and Sir Jericho will excuse me.
Well, of course, Inspector. We're only too pleased that even the busiest, the most successful detective in the land has time to consider something so humane as a holiday. Inspector, discussion finished. And Nossiter, the libation is correct in every particular.
White rum, sir, Angostura bitters, crushed limes, some aerated water, and cracked ice.
Ice?
Ice in an English summer.
This is indeed a miracle, Sir Jericho. But ice in a drink?
Such a confection is called by our American cousins a cocktail, Inspector, because it is lively, full of metal, and it tickles the palate.
But how do you come by ice in this season, sir?
Well, you need two elements. A good hard winter and a damp, cool cellar. I noted the idea when I was in India a few years ago. You form the ice in winter in large blocks, wrap the blocks in burlap, put all in straw, and secrete deep in a cellar in moist, cool earth. I have a river close to the cellar here, and that keeps the temperature low all year. And there's another mystery solved, gentlemen, I hope, to your satisfaction.
And now, let us drink together, for I am anxious to taste this cocktail of yours at once, dear Jericho.
Who?
Short card, sir, your assistant, with a letter for you. Marked confidential, from Scotland.
Then give it here, lad.
Sealed under the impress of the Earl of Lesmahago.
Within this envelope, sure card, my hopes are won or lost.
The news are good, sir?
The news are fascinating, sure card. Cast your mind back to last week when you were alone and jovial with Sir Jericho and his bride-to-be. I was with Nossiter and begged to see Sir Jericho's trophies of the chase and his armoury. Amid all the weapons that adorned that great wall, one was conspicuous by its absence. My inquiries revealed that Sir Jericho had lent this unusual and long obsolescent weapon to the Earl of Lesmahago. I took the trouble to verify this. And here is my answer.
Well, sir?
High Cockalaw of Shorecard. Lesmahago denies all knowledge of this alleged loan.
But of what possible interest can this be?
Accompany me to the Crystal Palace late tonight, and I hope to show you Shorecard. Easy with that lantern, lad. We want no custodians disturbing us, or our necks are on the block.
But why are we here, sir, in the Sycamore Road?
This vast glass edifice, that mighty tree, saw once the body of Temperance Muldoon, dead in that fork, some 60 foot above ground.
Sir, this was where the parliamentary party found him.
To be sure, a party comprising...
Mr. Cosmo Evergreen, Mr. Hatchard Millicent, Mr. Nathaniel Upjohn, and the Laird of Yell.
And...
Sir Jericho Arbogast.
And what did Evergreen himself establish?
That from time to time, members of the party separated.
You begin to reassure me, lad. Look for the softest earth in this area and dig. Dig well, Shorecard. Dig deep.
This spot seems untrodden, sir. Protected as it is by the great base roots of the sycamore.
Yes. Yes, the earth is softer here. Sink your spade. Thus. Have a care, lad. You may be striking evidence.
Sir, I have something.
Huh?
Some strange...
Yes.
Some strange agricultural implement is buried here by errors. Great Scott.
Great Scott indeed, Shorecard. You have in your hand a crossbow.
Belonging to Sir Jericho Arbogast.
A crossbow supposedly lent to the Earl of Lesmahago 3 months ago or more.
Sir, Inspector?
Yes, lad? What is it?
The man upstairs is wondering how you intend to proceed with the new case, sir.
The new case can wait. I am concerned with Victory Tidd.
Tidd, sir?
Why should Tidd have to die? That most innocuous of mortals. A man who could surely have played no part in the obscene and sensational events that we are now enjoined to forget.
I'm at a loss, sir. Always was where Tidd was concerned. But may I draw your attention to the time?
Why?
It is now 2:45. If you recall, sir, we were invited to celebrate the nuptials of Sir Jericho Arbogast and Melisande Lady Quandary at the parish church of St. Matthew Carborundum in the city of Westminster 15 minutes ago.
And if any man know of just cause or impediment why these two persons should not be joined together in holy matrimony, let him speak now or forever hold his peace.
I am that man.
I beg your pardon, sir.
I am he who knows of that impediment.
Have you taken leave of your senses, sir?
My Lord Bishop, I am Inspector Millions of the Detective, and I am here to arrest the putative bridegroom, Sir Jericho Arbogast, on a charge of double homicide.
I shall see you ruined for this outrage, Millions, destroyed.
You kill those men at the Crystal Palace, Sir Jericho, and I can prove how you killed them. Why need not concern me as an officer of the law.
But how could those unfortunate creatures have been murdered? There was no trace of a weapon.
If you leave ice in a cocktail, Sir Jericho, for any length of time, what happens to it?
Why, it melts, of course.
And leaves no trace, as if it had never been.
You mean, sir, that instead of a steel bolt, he used a long, slim shard of ice as the projectile for his crossbow?
A weapon of pure genius, Shurcard. For by the time the bodies were inspected, all trace of ice had vanished. But, Sir Jericho, I can hazard a guess as to why you slew Muldoon, but not Tidd, a man you'd never met.
You are indeed a great detective, sir, and I salute you. As to why I killed those men, the answer is simple. I am tired of killing beasts, both great and small. For the ultimate danger, the ultimate conquest, I had never attempted the stalk and killing of a man. To do this in public, to court apprehension and trial and the gallows, and to evade them, this became my one ambition. And so I hit upon a weapon in the very means you suggested, and I used it once, from a distance and earlier, on a man who was later discovered to be Victory Tidd. Flushed with that success, I could think of nothing but to dare again in even more perilous circumstances. During the parliamentary visit to the palace, this time the victim, then unknown to me since he was obscured by foliage, was Temperance Muldoon. Thereafter, I reburied the crossbow. I waited all. For a time, I thought I'd won. Your brilliance has discovered me, and now I am ready to embrace the fate I so inevitably deserve.
But why are we travelling to Dunwich, sir? Surely Lady Quandary has suffered enough.
Tell me this, Shurcard. Why were Sir Jericho and Lady Quandary so anxious to marry so soon after the death of Lord Quandary, when they knew that by doing so they were brutally outraging all social conventions?
Because they were very deeply in love,
Oh,
sir.
abandon these romanticisms, lad, and think again.
I try, sir. I search and search about.
Because a wife may not be obliged
to give evidence against her husband.
I am sorry, Inspector, but Lady Quandary can see no one. She is prostrate, having taken at her physician's advice a strong sedative.
You know me, Porritt. You know my rank and my authority. And I tell you that I must speak to Lady Quandery on the instant.
It cannot be allowed, sir.
You have ever been a loyal servant to the Lady, Porritt. I respect you for it. But no good can come of obstructing me now. I must and will see the Lady Melisande at once.
Very well, sir. Her ladyship is in the garden, at the far end of it, overlooking the sea.
Thank you. Shulcard.
Sir.
Be so good as to wait for me here. I may be some time. Lady Melisande?
Inspector Millions, why are you here?
I think you must know, ma'am.
You have destroyed all I hold dear. Why do you seek me out now?
Sir Jericho Arbogast killed 2 men in cold blood, milady. I want you to tell me why. Lord Quandery was an elderly man of an infirm constitution. You are a beautiful young woman. Sir Jericho is a handsome and adventurous young man. It was natural that youth should call to youth.
There was love between us, certainly. But at no time did I ever transgress my marriage vows.
Nevertheless, Temperance Muldoon became aware of this growing attachment between yourself and Sir Jericho. I think you paid Muldoon handsomely for his silence, enough for him to buy a house in Chelsea. But I think Muldoon wanted still more money, and from time to time you delivered it to him personally, veiled, always in a cab from Regent Street. And you argued and pleaded with him in an upper suite of 4 Trincomalee stairs. I think that realizing his demands would never cease, you told Sir Jericho of them. I think Sir Jericho, with cold and matchless cunning... cold and matchless cunning, killed an unknown man. Victory paid. Firstly, to try out his bizarre weapon for its effectiveness, and secondly, to draw me away from the killing of Muldoon, with all its implications.
Inspector, believe this or not as you will, I wanted Jericho to buy Muldoon's perpetual silence with an offer of passage money to Australia and sufficient capital for him to start a farm there. It was not until I heard of the deaths of Muldoon and Tidd from the Times newspaper that I realized that Jericho could have had no success with his bargaining, and had stumbled upon the fact that it was no longer money that Muldoon wanted, but me.
Wanted? You, milady?
When I visited Muldoon for the last time in that oppressive house in Chelsea, I shudder even now to admit to such humiliation. He proposed that his dreadful room should be our place of assignation, that in return for my favours, he would not reveal to Lord Quandery the attachment that had grown between Sir Jericho and myself. An attachment which, I repeat, was blameless indeed, if not entirely in emotion.
This is an aspect of the affair that had never crossed my mind.
Yet the most abominable thing of all was this. For 20 years my husband had been conducting an affair with a woman, and rejoiced to tell me of it. A woman who was, he said, in every respect my superior.
Glumdalclitch Osborne.
Oh, dear God, you know that too.
I could only guess, till now.
That person had a daughter, Daffodil, by her self-styled protector, the man Danvers Gimlinge. 4 years ago, my husband began debauching her too, paying the mother handsomely for the privilege. Can you wonder, then, how sickened I was of Xerxes, and how readily I found comfort in the presence of Sir Jericho?
But Gimlinge knew nothing of this. And he was suborned, along with Earthrow, to steal intimate correspondence between Miss Osborne and your husband.
From Bentinck Street?
Gimlinge, recognising that the letters hideously compromised his common-law wife and daughter, refused to deliver them. So, Sir Lucifer mortally wounded him and removed the correspondence.
Oh, Inspector, what a nightmare tale of lust and greed and slaughter.
Sir Lucifer Hipkin, bent on securing the Foreign Secretaryship, called on Lord Quandery and, lighting a Havana cigar, showed him the letters. Your husband realised that his reputation was ruined forever. And thinking for once of you, he invented a plausible story to cover the deaths of Tid, Muldoon and Earthrow, then did away with himself.
Nothing more can happen to me now.
This is vital, my lady. Following the deaths of the two gardeners, did Sir Jericho ever disclose to you that it was he who had murdered them?
Not once. He would never have inflicted that terrible knowledge upon me.
But you guessed, Lady Melisande?
I must have done.
And having guessed, you were nevertheless prepared to join him in matrimony. A matrimony sanctioned by Holy Church.
Should I have denounced the only man I ever loved? The man who, however brutally, freed me of the loathsome embraces of Muldoon.
My lady, the law of which I am an officer would maintain that you are an accessory after the fact of two murders. Make no mistake. Sir Jericho is guilty, and he will be hanged. Yet, the present horror at his false confession of motive would be greatly dissipated were the court to learn the true reason for his actions, that he wished to preserve your honour.
To be imprisoned, to be separated from my son. Have I not suffered enough?
Think, I urge you, of Victory Tid, a useful and wholly innocent man in the prime of life. Does not his death cry out for retribution?
My son, Gareth, is 5 years old, Inspector. When he grows old enough to understand, will you try to explain to him something of the complexity and cruelty of this life of mine? Because I see you are a just man, terrible in your implacability, but just.
I shall try, ma'am, with all my heart.
Thank you. For some 400 years, the sea has been eating away at these cliffs of Dunwich. Far below us, somewhere on the ocean bed, lie great houses and churches and huge bells. Inch by inch, yard by yard, the headlands of Dunwich are claimed by the sea. Just so has my own short life been eaten, been entirely claimed by others' deceit and folly, and my own. I shall not see Dunwich again, Inspector.
The wind mounts. The cliff is treacherous.
Say goodbye to Jericho for me. Give him my unending love.
Do not approach too close to the edge, ma'am. Ma'am! Lady Melisande! Come back! Lady Melisande!
What has happened, sir? Dear heaven, what's that noise?
If we are creatures of any sensibility, Shuakar, we shall say it is the bells under the sea, tolling for the soul of a confused, tormented, but valiant lady.
In The Instruments of Darkness by Michael Robson, Inspector Millions was played by Nigel Stock, Dynasty Shorecard by Anthony Hall, Melisande by Elizabeth Proud, and Porret by Richard Handel. Xerxes, Lord Quandre by Manning Wilson, Sir Jericho by Henry Knowles, Fleet Ned Sprott and Nossiter by Brian Hewlett, Dr. Yolland and the Bishop by Michael Deacon, Caroline Muldoon, Heather Bell, Sir Lucifer Hipkin, Nigel Graham, Earthrow, Peter Wickham, Gimlinge, Michael Harbour, Meldrum and Peoples Clackworthy, Trader Faulkner, Daffodil, Penelope Reynolds, and Mrs. Glumdale Clitch Osborne, Irene Sutcliffe. The play was directed by David Spencer.
Rumpole and the Primrose Path by John Mortimer, with Timothy West as Horace Rumpole and Prunella Scales as his wife, Hilda.
Now we are all assembled, with one important exception, of course, I would like, as head of chambers, to introduce you all to our new head of marketing and administration, Lucy Gribble, who will, from now on, be in charge of improving the image of chambers.
Thank you, Mr. Ballard QC. Thank you indeed for that kind introduction. Just a scrap of detail to kick off with. I spell my first name Lucy with an I and not a Y.
Whatever for?
It makes, I feel, for a snappier image.
Ah.
Now, Mr. Ballard QC, I address you as chair of this meeting.
What did she say?
She called me chair.
Made you sound like an article of furniture.
Oh, do be quiet, Erskine Brown. Lucy Gribble has an important message for all of us.
Oh, very well.
What we have to demonstrate is that barristers have outsize hearts. And now we have a situation, sad as I'm sure we all agree it may be, which gives us the opportunity to show that we do care. So much so that we should all join in a very public display of heartfelt thanks.
Heartfelt thanks for what?
Heartfelt thanks for the life of one of our number. Horace Rumpole was an ordinary workaday barrister, an old war horse, one who didn't profess to legal brilliance, but one who cared deeply, and one we loved as a fellow member of Equity Court. By this act, we shall show that barristers have hearts.
By what act is that exactly?
The memorial service in the Temple Church for the late Horace Rumpole, barrister at law.
Isn't that a little premature? I notice that no one's yet announced Rumpole's death.
Well, let us not forget that after the heart attack brought about by an almighty row with Judge Bullingham at the Old Bailey, Mrs. Rumpole tells me that he's been removed from his London hospital, no doubt as a hopeless case, to the Primrose Path nursing home in Sussex. Hilda Rumpole was trying to put a brave face on it, but she admitted that Horace would be away from chambers for a very, very long time indeed. And one knows, doesn't one, what places like the Primrose Path are like? The truth of it is that not many people come out of them alive.
Then I suggest, Chair, we go full speed ahead with the memorial.
We'll need to put together a programme, and we can hardly ask Mrs. Rumpole for her help. As yet.
I have an aunt in Godalming. I can call in on Rumpole when I go down to see her next. See how the land lies.
And I'm sure your visit, Erskine Brown, will be a welcome treat for Rumpole.
Whoever had christened this place of eternal rest the Primrose Path betrayed insufficient knowledge of English literature. According to Ophelia in Hamlet, it's the path of dalliance, and dalliance in the home was confined strictly to the television. The porter in Macbeth, however, said the Primrose Way led to the everlasting bonfire. This may have been a more accurate description. The inhabitants of the rooms down the corridor were given to disappearing quietly during the night, and leaving the Primrose Path, I felt sure, for the nearest crematorium. It was no particular treat to encounter Claude Erskine Brown in my room at the Primrose Path nursing home.
What's your favourite music, Rumpole?
Music, Erskine Brown?
We know you're absurdly prejudiced against Wagner. Tell me, when you sing to yourself, what do you sing?
Sometimes Pop Goes the Weasel. Occasionally Knock 'em in the Old Kent Road. More often than not, a ballad of the war years. There'll be bluebirds over the white cliffs of Dover. You remember that?
No, I'm afraid I don't. Tell me, Rumpole, talking of the war years, did you ever serve your country overseas?
Oh, yes, I flew Spitfires in the war. I shot down the Red Baron and was the first British pilot to enter Berlin.
Try to be serious, Rumpole. I only ask because Ballard wants material for his speech.
His speech about me?
About your life. To give thanks for your existence. We shall celebrate you, Rumpole.
You mean at a Chambers piss-up in Pomeroy's wine bar?
Not exactly that, Rumpole. No. Anyway, I'd better be getting back. I've got a rating appeal tomorrow.
I envy you, Erskine Brown. You seem to lead a life of perpetual excitement.
There's just one more thing. Do you have a favourite prayer?
I pray to God to be left alone so I can get out of here as quickly as possible. It's all far too clean for my liking.
I'm sure they'll look after you extremely well here, Rumpole. For as long as you have left.
An hour later, I was woken from my doze by the sound of a woman sobbing. I moved, as quietly as I could manage it, into the corridor. At the end of the passage, with its linoleum shining like polished shoes, a woman was crying as she watered a bowl of hyacinths. She was Nurse Albright, my favourite member of staff, known to me as Dotty Dorothy. We would sing together songs we both loved, such as Night and Day, That Old Black Magic, and They Can't Take That Away From Me, which I danced to in the far distant time before Hilda's and my foxtrotting days were over.
Go back to your room, Mr. Rumpole, before Sister Sheila sees you.
Never mind about Sister Sheila. I've grown impervious to the icy disapproval of the head girl. Come into my room, Dotty.
Dotty's singing, her therapeutic use of herbs, and on many occasions her kindness, got her into frequent trouble with her boss, Sister Sheila Bradwell, who ruled the Primrose Path with the kind of enlightened and liberal principles which guided Captain Bligh when he was in charge of the Bounty.
Now then, tell me what's the matter.
A terrible night, Mr. Rumpole. It's been the most ghastly night ever at the Primrose Path.
Tell me what happened.
Oh, poor Mr. Fairweather. He passed away during the night. They took him away. It was my night off, and they took him away without even telling me.
Freddie Fairweather was recovering, Dotty told me, from a massive heart attack, and she brought him herbal remedies to cheer him, and in return he made jokes and flirtatious suggestions.
I always said you and Freddie were my favourite patients. You won't believe what they've done to him.
What exactly?
Well, Sister let them take him away without even a chance of saying goodbye. Freddie would have hated that. He was full of rude suggestions, of course he was. He was a bit of a Jack the lad, we know that, even in his condition of health. But underneath all that, he had the most perfect manners. He'd have liked me to be there to hold his hand and say goodbye before they took him. But she wouldn't have that. She has to know best always.
We've got judges like that down the Old Bailey.
I hate to say this to you, Mr. Rumpole, but there's just no organisation in this place. It's all rules and no practice. You know what else happened last night?
Sister Sheila's Pekingese has done a runner?
No such luck. It was a patient called Mr. Masklin.
I don't know him.
No one seemed to. He was transferred here because they couldn't find a hospital bed for him. A pain in the neck, quite frankly, always complaining. Well, he has been very ill. But it seems last night he just got off his bed and walked straight out of the front door. I don't suppose we'll miss him, filthy-tempered man, but... Oh, I do miss Freddie.
Yeah, I know. But, Dotty, this man Masklin, no one knows where he went?
Well, seems not. Only Nurse Rogers did tell me one thing.
What did she tell you?
When she went to Mr. Masklin's room this morning, the door was locked.
Strangely enough, after that sad and eventful night, the Primrose Path became, in some elusive and quiet way, more interesting.
Mr. Masklin was an impossible patient, Mr. Rumpole. Quite frankly, we were glad to see the back of him.
No one saw him leave?
No one.
That young man, Gavin, wasn't he at the desk by the front door?
Gavin is studying for an important exam. He can't watch the door every minute of the night.
Did Masklin have a family?
Oh, someone he said was his sister came once. No one's been able to track her down either.
Do the police know he's gone missing?
We reported it, naturally. If you're so interested, I can tell you there's no sign of him at his last known address.
My friend Dotty says his door was locked in the morning when she came on duty.
Your friend Nurse Albright says a lot of things we don't have to take too much notice of. Of course, the door wasn't locked at night. We locked it in the morning until the police came to see if there were any clues to where he'd gone. We didn't want the evidence disturbed. You know all about that, don't you, Mr. Rumpole?
I suppose I do. All in all, it must have been a terrible night for you. I was sorry to hear about Mr. Fairweather.
Oh, well, these things happen, Mr. Rumpole, at a place like this. They're very sad, but they happen all the time. We've got used to it, of course, and we deal with it as kindly as possible, whatever your friend Nurse Albright may say about the matter.
Dotty told me she was very fond of Mr. Fairweather.
Oh, yes. And did your friend also tell you that dear old Mr. Fairweather had said he'd left her money in his will?
She never said anything about that. Only that she was upset because he died so suddenly.
Yes, well, it's nothing for you to worry about, Mr. Rumpole, is it? And if you take my advice, you'll steer very clear of your friend's herbal remedies. Some of them may have unfortunate results. Oh, yeah. Does Nanky Poo want walkies? Oh, come on. Can't spend all day talking to you, Mr. Rumpole. Really, I can't. Come along, darling.
Sister Sheila recognised no superior being except for one called Nanky Poo, an evil-tempered, spoiled and domineering Pekingese dog, whom I had seen the sister kiss, fondle, feed with chocolate biscuits, and generally spoil in a way she would never treat a patient. Like many of the inhabitants of the Primrose Path, Nanky Poo suffered a degree of incontinence which littered the garden and added some significance to his name. Late one afternoon, as I woke from a light doze, I found Dotty sitting by my bed with a surprise present. Dotty, you're a genius. It was half a bottle of claret she'd managed to get opened in an off-licence and smuggled in under her mac.
Cheers.
Cheers. We shared a tooth-glassful of a wine in the same humble class as Chateau Thames Embankment, but nonetheless welcome to a palate starved of alcohol. Dotty was quieter, sadder somehow.
They don't want me to go to the funeral.
Who doesn't want you to? The family?
No, Sister Sheila. And Freddie's special doctor. Freddie wouldn't see anyone else.
The common run of patients, myself included, were attended to by one of the local GPs. However, the Primrose Path was visited almost daily by a tall, elegantly dressed man in a well-cut suit, who moved in a deafening smell of aftershave down the corridor, always escorted by Sister Sheila, and referred to by the staff in tones of considerable awe as Dr. Lucas.
I've never got on with that doctor. Do you know, they won't even tell me where the funeral's going to be. They said it was Freddie's special wish. He hated funerals.
None of us liked them, particularly our own.
So he didn't want anyone to be there. It was his last wish, they told me. He wanted to be cremated.
The primrose way to the everlasting bonfire.
You know what happened? Dr. Lucas and Sister Sheila were there with him when he died. They rang the undertaker, they said, and they had him taken away at once, during the night. As though Freddie was something to be ashamed of.
You miss him very much, don't you?
Oh, poor old thing. Do you know, sometimes he said he was in love with me.
She put her hand into the pocket of her uniform
Look at this.
and pulled out a photograph. A bald-headed, elderly man with a nose which looked as though it had at some distant time in his life been broken in hostility or sport. He was sitting up in bed, smiling, with his arm round Nurse Dotty.
Trainee Nurse Jones took that. We were all laughing.
Sister Sheila said something to me. Was Fairweather going to leave you money in his will?
Oh, he told everyone that. Not that I ever really expected anything, of course. But it just showed how well we got on. He said he didn't have much of a family left to provide for. He told me he had a business somewhere in the north of England, and he wasn't short of a bob or two. I'm going to find out about Freddie's funeral, and I'm going to it. I don't care what Sister Sheila has to say. I'm entitled to do that, aren't I?
I can assure you, if you want the best legal opinion, you're entitled to go to any funeral you choose. I'd even invite you to mine.
Oh, don't be silly. That's not going to happen. And we're not going to stay here much longer, are we? The Primrose Path's really just not our sort of place, is it?
Not our sort of place. Dotty's words, together with her account of the ease with which the awkward customer Masklin had escaped from the Primrose Path, fired my enthusiasm. I waited for a night when Dotty was not only off duty, but had gone to stay with her sister in Haywards Heath. I made sure that she couldn't be blamed by the Obergruppenführer for my having gone missing from the list of inmates.
Right.
My clothes were still hanging in a cupboard in my room, so I was able to change the pyjamas for my regulation garb of black jacket and waistcoat, a pair of striped trousers supported by braces, a white shirt with detachable collar, and, by this time, shamefully dusty and unpolished black shoes. I had kept charge of my wallet, which had 4 £10 notes and a travel pass in it, So I was soon prepared for the dash to freedom. The way you feel my pulse, the way you test my pee. I paused to scribble a note for Dotty, which contained only my own 4-line version of an old song. They can't take that away from me. I wasn't particularly proud of rhyming pulse with else, but time was pressing, and I had a journey to make. I signed the message, Love Rumpole, put the dressing gown back on over my clothes, and moved out stealthily towards the staircase. The gods who look after the elderly trying to escape the clutches of the medical profession were on my side. Gavin, the quiet and serious young student to whom a shaven head and an over-large brown jumper gave a curiously monkish appearance, was away from his desk, as he was on the night Michael Masklin walked free. I slid back bolts, undid chains, and passed out into the night, shedding the dressing gown in the darkness of the garden. Dressed as though for the Old Bailey, I presented myself at the railway station, where the last train to Victoria was, happily, half an hour late. My first call in London was to Equity Court. Our chambers were silent and empty. I went into my room, which seemed on first glance to be depressingly tidy. However, the eagle eyes of the tidier-up had missed a half-full packet of small cigars at the back of a drawer. I lit one, puffed out a perfect smoke ring, and then I noticed a glossy little folder, something which looked like the advertisement for a country hotel or a tour of the Lake District, except the cover bore the words Equity Court Chambers, with the truncated address bestofthebar, all one word, .com. Inside, on the first page, was a list of our chamber's members. My eye was immediately drawn to one entry, Horace Rumpole, B.A. Oxon, against which someone had written, with a felt-tip pen, deceased. I immediately lifted the telephone and called my home in Froxbury Mansions. Hilda?
Rumpole, is that you?
Yes, it's me, Rumpole, and not Rumpole deceased either. It's Rumpole alive and kicking.
Isn't it way past bedtime in the Primrose Path?
I don't care what bedtime is in the Primrose Path. I'm not in the Primrose Path anymore. I've put the Primrose Path far behind me. I'm in Chambers.
You're in Chambers? Whatever are you doing in Chambers? Go back to the nursing home at once.
Certainly not. I'm coming home to Gloucester Road. I don't need nursing anymore. It would be untrue to say that there was, at first anyway, a hero's welcome for the returning Rumpole. There were no flowers, cheers, or celebratory bottles opened. There was the expected denunciation of the defendant Rumpole as
selfish, ungrateful, irresponsible, opinionated, willful, and, not to put too fine a point upon it, a pain in the neck to all who have to deal with you.
But behind these stiff sentences, I got the strange and unusual feeling that Hilda was fairly pleased to see me alive and kicking. She told me of the impending visit of the two QCs, and when Ballard let her know over the telephone that they planned a fitting tribute to Rumpole's life, she guessed what they were after. Now I appeared to be back in the land of the living. She was prepared to fall in with my master plan, and enable me to eavesdrop as the two leading pomposities of our chambers unfolded their plans to mark the end of Rumpole's life on earth. Accordingly, I was shut away in the kitchen when Ballard and Erskine Brown arrived. Hilda left the sitting-room door ajar, and I moved into the hall to enjoy the conversation.
Mrs. Rumpole, we're sure you would like to join us in offering up thanks for the gift of Rumpole's life.
A gift? Not a free gift, certainly. It had to be paid for by a certain amount of irritation.
That is strictly true, but one has to admit that Horace achieved a certain notoriety, notwithstanding the fact that he remained a member of the junior bar.
Albeit a rather elderly member of the junior bar.
It's true that he never took a silk gown or joined us in the front row. The Lord Chancellor never made him a QC.
His face didn't fit with the establishment.
All the same, some of the cases he did attracted attention. So we want to arrange a memorial service in the Temple Church.
You mean a memorial service for Rumpole?
That, Mrs. Rumpole, Hilda, if I may, is exactly what we mean. We're sure that you, of course, Hilda, and Rumpole's family and friends would wish to join us in this act of celebration.
You mean you're going to invite that terrible tribe of South London criminals?
I hardly think that the Timpsons would fit in with the congregation at the Temple Church.
I'm sure there will be many people who aren't members of the criminal fraternity and who'll want to give Rumpole a really good send-off.
Thank you for that kind thought, Ballard.
Rumpole!
It was at this point that I entered the room, carrying a bottle of Chateau Thames Embankment and 4 glasses.
And now you're both here, perhaps we'll all drink to Rumpole Revived.
Hamlet, happening to bump into his father's ghost on the battlements, couldn't have looked more surprised than my learned friends. I was sitting in my room in Chambers when our clerk Henry put through a phone call, and I heard, to my delight, the voice of Nurse Dotty.
I had a visit from the police. They wanted me to help them with their inquiries.
I felt a chill wind blowing. People who help the police with their inquiries often end up in serious trouble. Inquiries about what?
Poor old Freddie Fairweather's death. They suggest I call in at the station and bring my solicitor. And I haven't really got a solicitor.
Well, I'll get you one. Where are you? I'll ring you back. This was clearly a job for my old friend Bonnie Bernard, and I put him in touch with Dotty. A few days later, she called into my chambers to report the result of an extraordinary conversation which they had had with Detective Inspector Maundy and Detective Sergeant Thorndyke in a nick not too far from the Primrose Path home.
They were a decent enough couple of officers, but they soon made their suspicions clear to your Mr. Bernard and to me.
Suspicions of what?
Murder, Mr. Rumpole.
Dotty, you haven't done in Sister Sheila.
They're investigating the death of one of the patients, Mr. Frederick Fairweather. As if I'd do anything to hurt Freddie. We were great friends, you know that, just as you and I were, Mr. Rumpole.
And we still are, Dotty. But what are you supposed to have done to Fairweather?
Digitalis.
Foxglove?
It's used to stabilise the action of the heart. They asked me about the access I had to Digitalis or digoxin. They seemed to think that I had a huge collection of pills and potions.
Well, you do have something of the sort, haven't you?
Oh, only harmless herbal remedies of my own, you know that. And of course I had access to digoxin, but I'd always entered every dose I had to give a patient, and I never treated Freddie with it at all.
So what are they suggesting?
That they had evidence I used a whole lot of digoxin without entering it or keeping a note. That I was seen coming out of Freddie Fairweather's room an hour before he died. And that I had also boasted I was going to benefit from Mr. Fairweather's will. It's all completely ridiculous. I went to bed early that night and never left my room until I went on duty next day. I didn't care a scrap about Freddie's will. I only wanted him to get better. That was all I wanted. Nothing would have made me harm him. Nothing in the world.
Now, that Dr. Lucas, was it? He must have entered the cause of death.
Well, he said the cause of death was a heart attack, that Mr. Fairweather had had heart problems. But Dr. Lucas told the inspector that the attack might also have been brought about by an overdose of digoxin.
Dotty, you told me you were going to Freddie's cremation. Did you go?
Oh, it was terrible, Mr. Rumpole. Just terrible. There was no one there, absolutely no one at all. Sister Sheila had said Freddie didn't want anyone to see him go, but I couldn't believe that. There was no one to say anything in the chapel, not a word, not a prayer. And there was just me to watch the coffin slide away behind the curtains. Apart from me, he went quite alone.
Is there anything else you want to tell me?
Only that I'm angry. So angry.
Angry because you know who's been talking to the police?
Of course.
You think it's Sister Sheila?
Who else could it be? They told us, Mr. Rumpole, that they'd be making further inquiries. Of course, we don't know what they'll find out.
Perhaps they'll find out why Sister Sheila went to them with a story like that. It was while I was turning the plight of Dotty Albright over in my mind that my room was invaded by a pungent but not unpleasant perfume. A tall woman in a black trouser suit with blonde hair came with it.
Got a minute?
Hmm?
It's about time we had a word. I'm sorry, I haven't had a window before.
A window? Was the poor young woman shut in some airless oubliette in the Chambers cellarage? But by now she had made herself comfortable in my client's chair.
I'm Lucy Gribble. Lucy with an I. I'm your new Director of Marketing and Administration.
Well, I never had an old Director of Marketing, so I don't see why I should need a new one.
I'm here, Horace, To look after your image.
Oh, I know what that means. I've heard it all before. It means you think I should get a new hat.
Oh, not at all. The hat's perfect. And the striped pants, and the cigar ash down the waistcoat. They all suit your image perfectly. Don't change a thing.
I'm told that you were behind the idea of a church service to celebrate my death.
To celebrate your life, Horace. That's what we were going to do. Of course, that's on hold. For the time being.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it.
Now, I understand you're going through a bit of a sticky patch, practice-wise.
Sticky?
Bit of a lull. A serious shortfall in briefs.
Not at all. As a matter of fact, I've just been instructed in a rather sensational murder case.
You're not kidding. Who got murdered?
Well, my client's a nurse. It suggested she murdered a patient called Freddie Fairweather in the Primrose Path home, a place from which I was extremely glad to escape.
Not Freddie Fairweather of Primrose.
The Primrose Path?
Well, I don't know anything about a Primrose Path. The Freddie Fairweather I worked for was Primrose Personal Pensions.
Oh.
He was an IFA.
What?
Independent financial advisor. Invested anyone's money in what he called a gilt-edged pension scheme. On the whole, about as gilt-edged as a bouncing cheque.
Ah.
Which is why we parted company. Do you say he's dead?
I'm afraid so. And without a memorial service. If he's the same Freddie Fairweather, of course.
Short, square shoulders, no hair, and a broken nose. Oh, he could turn on the charm, Freddie could. Had a bit of a chip on his shoulder as he'd left school at 15 and never been to university. Well, of course, if he's been murdered, you'd never have met him, would you, Horace?
I might have done, strangely enough. You say you worked for him. Where exactly?
Do you know Leeds at all?
I'm afraid I have only a sketchy knowledge of Leeds.
That's where I started in marketing. I was marketing for Freddie Fairweather. Oh, I won't say they were the best days of my life. I left because I didn't like the way the place was run. And I couldn't stand the company doctor. He was a quack who was meant to examine the pensioners. Oh, objectionable is not the word.
His name wasn't Lucas, was it?
Yeah, Sidney Lucas. That was him. Oh, but as for Freddie, I mean, he might have cut a few business corners, but I wouldn't have wanted to see him murdered.
I looked at her then. Her black-trousered legs crossed, shiny high-heeled boots pointed. An alien being in the dusty world of Equity Court. I lit a small cigar, and, rather to my surprise, she made no protest. I blew out smoke. I'd be very much obliged if you'd tell me everything you know about the late Freddie Fairweather.
All right, then. But would you mind passing me one of those whiffs?
Oh, with pleasure.
Oh, thank you.
And we sat smoking and talking together. And what the new director of marketing told me was of considerable interest.
Well, wait till you hear this, Horace.
It was time to call in old favours. I found myself in Pomeroy's wine bar, waiting for a lugubrious figure who wore, however pleasant the weather, an elderly mackintosh and the expression of a man with a cold who forever feels a drip forming at the end of his nose.
Hello, Mr. Rumpole.
This was, of course, the invaluable sleuth Ferdinand Ian Gilmore, known throughout the legal profession as Fig Newton, who, since adultery no longer had any legal significance, had taken to crime. In this field, his investigations were often more thorough and far more useful than those carried out by the police.
I heard you passed over.
And I've come back to haunt you, Fig, and also to remind you of the interesting and profitable work I've put your way over many years.
Interesting, Mr. Rumpole, yes. Rather less profitable. I wouldn't say any of them paid above the average. What do you have in mind?
I invested in a bottle of Chateau Thames Embankment. I'm afraid it was of an indifferent year, and not long enough in bottle. I sat Fig down at a quiet table in the corner of the bar. Then I told him all I knew about Freddie Fairweather and the Primrose Path, which had led, in his case so suddenly, to the everlasting bonfire. Then I gave him the list I'd made of the required information.
Are you suggesting, Mr. Rumpole, that I do all this as some sort of favour?
Fig looked at it doubtfully, like a man invited to swallow peculiarly nasty medicine. We'll try and meet your reasonable expenses. I can't promise you much more at the moment.
Time is money, Mr. Rumpole. If you can give me one good reason...
All right, Fig, I'll give you a good reason. I'm just back from a near-death experience. Business is slow, not to say boring. An excellent, charming, and utterly innocent woman has been accused of murder. It may all come to nothing, in a way I hope so. But meanwhile the case is shrouded in mystery, and I need your help. And if I can't solve it, I might as well turn up my toes and hang up my wig.
Don't do that, Mr. Rumpole. When do we start?
I also had more work for Bonnie Bernard, to pursue inquiries at Somerset House, and also now in the Leeds area. And I got him to agree to open informal discussions with Detective Inspector Maundy of the Sussex Police. So, south and north, my messengers set forth in search of information, and I had nothing much to do but sit in my room awaiting results. I was busily engaged in lighting a small cigar, while wrestling with the Times crossword puzzle, when my phone rang. Hello? It was Dotty.
Hello, Mr. Rumpole.
Oh, Dotty. Have you been summoned to another interview with the forces of law and order?
No, but I've had a call from the Primrose Path.
From Sister Sheila?
No, from Gavin. You remember Gavin, the quiet boy, university student? He used to be on the hall desk at nights, always had his head in a book.
Yeah, or else he wasn't there much. He wasn't on guard to prevent the escape of Michael Masklin, or come to that mine.
We got on rather well. He seemed a lonely sort of boy. We used to make coffee and talk when I was on nights and nothing much was happening. We argued about God and sex and fidelity and M&M. All those things that students talk about. It made me feel quite young again. I think he liked me.
I'm not at all surprised. Did you talk about the night they took away Freddie Fairweather?
No. He was away on some sort of course when that happened. No, this call was about his degree. He's due to get it soon from the University of Dorking. He asked me to go and watch. I was rather flattered.
What's he qualified in? Golf course management? Text messaging? Spiritual furniture arrangement? Aren't they the sort of things you get degrees in nowadays?
Nothing like that. Theology.
I began to ponder about young Gavin, and his very part-time presence on duty at the Primrose Path, while apparently doing his best to justify the ways of God to man in Dorking. Dotty, I think you should go to the degree ceremony.
Really?
Yes, definitely. I might even come with you. We'll get a good seat and keep our eyes open. But before that, I had to go back along the Primrose Path. Sister Sheila was awaiting me in her office.
I suppose you've come to apologise for the way you left us, Mr. Rumpole, slinking away like a thief in the night. It merely goes to show that you are still seriously unwell. And by the way, there is a bill for extras, which you left unpaid.
I haven't come here to apologise. I've come here to discuss one of your patients, Frederick Fairweather.
Mr. Fairweather sadly died, Mr. Rumpole, as I believe you know. He had trouble with his heart, as you have. Now, if there's nothing else you want to say to me...
There are a few little things I'd like to ask about Mr. Fairweather. He had a company in Leeds, selling private pensions, hadn't he?
Well, that was his business, was it? And you know more than I do.
Oh, I doubt that. And his business was called Primrose Pensions, wasn't it? And this is the Primrose Path Home.
Well, if that's so, it is a pure coincidence.
Really? There are a lot of coincidences, aren't there, about that eventful night? But let's stick to his business for a moment. Didn't he buy this home as an investment about 10 years ago? That was when you'd started to run it, and you got to know him rather well. Isn't that the truth of the matter?
I really don't see why I should sit here answering questions about the home's private arrangements. That is absolutely no business of yours, Mr. Rumpole.
I'm afraid it is my business, Mrs. Fairweather.
What did you call me?
By your name. You married Freddie last year, didn't you? In a Leeds Register office. He was the divorced husband of Barbara Elizabeth Threadwell, by whom he had one son, a quiet boy named Gavin, who got into university to read theology and is occasionally on duty at the desk in the hallway. I suppose you got Freddie to marry you as part of the deal.
Deal? What sort of a deal are you suggesting?
Primrose Pensions is in serious trouble, isn't it? The pensions just aren't there anymore. The poor devils who subscribe to Primrose have no comfortable income to look forward to. God knows what will happen to them. They'll be sleeping in doorways and dying on the national health, because the truth of the matter is Freddie trousered their money. Then he had nowhere to hide, except a quiet nursing home run by his wife, where he could be treated by his company doctor, who would assure the world and the fraud squad that Freddie was far too ill to come to court.
Mr. Rumpole, are you telling me you knew Mr. Fairweather well?
Since I left here, I've got to know him very well indeed.
You must be seriously ill, Mr. Rumpole. Mr. Fairweather has, as you well know, been dead for some time.
Are you sure?
Sure? Of course I'm sure.
It would have been what he wanted.
You think he wanted to die? People who come here don't want to die, Mr. Rumpole.
And not everyone has the fraud squad and the pension watchdog breathing down their necks. Not everyone has filched thousands of pounds of pensioners' money. The time was coming when Freddie's shelter in the Primrose Path might not be sufficient. There was only one place left for him to hide. Death.
Are you suggesting my patient committed suicide?
Oh, of course not. Freddie wouldn't give up as easily as that. His way out, and I think you know this as well as I do, was a death which was as much a fake as his pensions.
That is a most outrageous suggestion. My lawyers will make sure you pay for it and never repeat it.
Oh, I think your lawyers will have more important business on their hands. I'm sure Freddie's death was discussed, but no one could have planned the great opportunity of that night. It was more by luck, wasn't it, than good management?
Mr. Rumpole, Mr. Fairweather died of heart failure, confirmed by Dr. Lucas. His body was cremated, an event which was witnessed by your friend, Nurse Albright, who says he promised her something in his will.
Let me first deal with that. Dr. Lucas had spent years as the official medical advisor to a fraudulent pension company. Like you, I'm sure he expected to share in the spoils. You did your best to keep the date and place of Freddie's funeral a secret, but Dotty made her own inquiries. It's true she saw a coffin slide into the eternal bonfire. But whose coffin was it, exactly?
Freddie's, of course. Who else could it have been?
A man called Masklin? A transfer from a crowded hospital? A man no one knew much about, no apparent friends, no traceable relatives? He left the hospital that night. Was it, perhaps, the night he happened to die? I'm not saying you and Lucas killed him. I don't think you did. I just think his death was a stroke of luck. It meant that one of you could tell the undertaker that the dead man's name was Frederick Fairweather. And now, do you want to know why I've gone to the trouble of finding all this out? Because you got into a panic when you thought Dotty was asking too many questions and finding out too much about that dubious event in the crematorium. So you decided to discredit Dotty by making her a murder suspect. So you spun the police some ridiculous story about too much digoxin, implying that she would kill Freddie because he'd promised to remember her in his will. But there wasn't any will, any more than there was any fatal heart attack. When you next see Freddie, give him my regards and ask him if he's enjoying his death. I got up to go then, and the room, which had seemed so still, was full of movement. Lanky Pooh jumped out of his basket and started to bark, a high-pitched, irritable yelp like a particularly difficult patient complaining hysterically. At the same time, the door opened and Dr. Sidney Lucas stood in my way. He was looking at me in what I took to be a distinctly unfriendly fashion.
Dr. Lucas, this man is mad. He's seriously insane. He's been talking nonsense to me about poor Freddie.
Dr. Lucas filled the doorway, considerably younger, taller, and a great deal stronger than I am. Excuse me. Detective Inspector Maundy of the local force is waiting for me outside. He'll be very worried if I don't emerge. I did warn him that I might have some difficulty leaving. Whatever they had done to help a crooked businessman disappear from the face of the earth, however outrageous and reckless that plan had been, and however dishonest the doctor's conduct, the mention of the local constabulary made him step aside. I walked away from the Primrose Path for the last time, and towards the forces of law and order. I was prepared to make a statement. The University of Dorking is not an old foundation. The Assembly Hall is a modern glass and concrete building, in front of which stands a large piece of abstract statuary built, as far as I could see, of flattened and twisted girders and bits and pieces of motionless machinery. But inside the amphitheatre, the Vice-Chancellor, the professors and the lecturers were decked out in pink and scarlet gowns with slung-back medieval hoods. I sat with Dotty among the proud parents, behind the rows of students. Gavin, in his clean white shirt and hardly worn suit, looked younger than ever, hardly more than a schoolboy. As he waited his turn in the queue, his eyes had searched the audience. When he saw Dotty, he gave her a small, grateful wave and a smile. Now he stepped forward to get his scroll.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Look now, Dotty, up there. We turned and looked up to the entrance of the assembly hall. High above us, at the top of the raked seats, was a doorway. Freddie Fairweather had just moved to where he could see his son, far below him, get his degree. He stood there, a small, broad-shouldered, square figure with a broken nose. It was a moment of pride he had not been able to resist. As a great chancer, why shouldn't he have taken this risk to see Gavin get what he had never had, a university degree? He turned away, meaning to disappear again into the world of the dead. But he was stopped by Fig Newton and Detective Sergeant Thorndyke, who had been waiting for him, at my suggestion. So, the case of the Primrose Path never got me a brief. Neither Sister Sheila nor Dr. Sidney Lucas, when arraigned for their various offences, thought of employing Rumpole to defend them. Freddie Fairweather ended up in an open prison. Gavin has taken holy orders and returned to Leeds. I still meet Dotty from time to time, for tea in the Waldorf Hotel, where we sing, quietly but with pleasure, the old standards together. The way you sip your tea.
The memory of all that.
No, they can't take that away from me. I must say that I won't hear a word of criticism of Miss Lucy Gribble. I owe her a debt of gratitude. She graciously allowed me to come back to the land of the living, and she helped me solve the mystery of the Primrose Path nursing home. No, they can't take that away from me. No, they can't take that away from me.
In Rumpole and the Primrose Path by John Mortimer, Horace Rumpole was played by Timothy West, his wife Hilda, Prunella Scales, Samuel Ballard, Michael Cochrane, Claude Erskine Brown, Nigel Anthony, and Lucy Gribble, Sophie Thompson. Nurse Dotty Albright was played by Joanna David, Sister Sheila Bradwell, Carol Boyd, and Fig Newton by David Shaw Parker. Rumpole and the Primrose Path was directed by Marilyn Imrie.
The slope was live. That cheap little bookie did nothing but lie and lie. But now when he stepped into the witness box, there is no money. He has the lot. The whole bloody lot.
Silence! Order in the court.
Mr. Savage, I must ask you yet again to make it clear to your client that I am prepared to try him here and now for contempt and to pass a consecutive sentence, unless he remains silent while sentence is passed.
I am extremely sorry, Your Honour. Whilst in no way condoning his behaviour, I can only ask the court to take into consideration the stress he has
save
been
your
under.
breath. His Honour, Mr. Justice Bloody Edward Dawlish. He's less interested in justice as he showed during his stuffing up.
That's it. Take him below.
Get your bloody hands off me!
Order in the court.
Silence!
Order in court. I take it that you have no objection to my passing sentence in his absence, Mr. Savage?
As Your Honour pleases.
As I was saying, members of the jury, your verdict is one with which I heartily concur. Thomas Roger Snaith betrayed his position of trust by systematically milking his employers of over £30,000 over a period of 7 years. He cared nothing for the well-being of his firm and less for the security of its 30 employees whom his insatiable greed has placed in jeopardy. In view of this, and bearing in mind that £10,000 is still unaccounted for, most probably smuggled out of the country, I am sentencing him to a term of imprisonment of 9 years.
Vendetta for a Judge, a new play for radio by James Follett, with Bernard Horsfall and Mary Law as Edward and Caroline Dawlish, and Roger Hammond and Frida Dowie as Tom and Marion Snaith. Vendetta for a Judge.
9 years. 9 years on the say-so of a bent judge. Slope paid him. It was obvious to everyone that he was lying.
Don't be stupid, Tom, and keep your voice down.
He should have told the jury in his summing up. The evidence of a bookmaker of Slope's record is not to be trusted. He should have said... 9 years.
Slope hasn't got a record.
Too bloody cunning as that judge is bent.
Oh. How long will the appeal take, Tom?
Baker doesn't know. The useless solicitor he turned out to be.
It's no good blaming everyone else, Tom. You swindled Hutchings Engineering out of that money and you got caught. You brought everything on yourself.
Nice to hear a wife sticking by her husband.
I'm going to stick by you for the next 9 years. Unless you'd like me to find someone else.
I'm sorry, Marion, love. It's just that it wouldn't be 9 years if it hadn't been for that judge.
Mr. Baker said that Judge Dawlish is the best and the fairest circuit judge in the country. It's not his fault if Slope lied about the amount of money you bet with him over the years. Slope's book showed...
Slope's book showed what Slope wanted them to show. I'm not blaming Slope, not with taxation being what it is. What I'm saying is that Dawlish should have warned the jury that it's not unknown for backstreet bookies to keep 2 sets of books.
Oh, I know.
Turf accountant. Even Harry Slope blinked at the saint-like aura of respectability that damn judge gave him.
Is there still 10,000 unaccounted for?
Not a cent. Slope had it.
If only you hadn't wasted it on the horses like that.
I paid off the mortgage, didn't I? New car. All those holidays abroad. I didn't hear you complaining.
I didn't know, Tom.
Of course you did.
Tom, I swear. I had no idea.
But you must have suspected. Did you really think that I was worth that sort of salary to Hutchings?
Yes. Yes, Tom, I did.
Well, I was a good company secretary. I only took what a good company secretary is entitled to. 5,000 a year on top of their lousy pay. I mean, I wasn't greedy. I've saved them 100 times that over the years by toning down some of young Hutchings' harebrained schemes. They should have put me on the board when the old man died. 25 years I slogged my guts out for that firm. And they wouldn't even give me a car. I was entitled. I was prepared to give them my entire life. The least they should have given me was some sort of future.
Well, there's not much of a future for us now, is there?
Or His Honour, Judge Edward Bloody Dawlish.
What do you mean?
I'm going to fix him. Just as he fixed me.
Oh, don't talk silly.
I'm serious, Marion. I'm going to ruin that judge's life just as he's ruined ours. I don't know how, but I'll think of something. After all, I've got plenty of time, haven't I? Plenty of time. 9 bloody years.
According to the paper, the trial went well.
Huh?
Thomas Roger Snaith, Edward. You gave him 9 years yesterday.
So?
So what went wrong?
Who said anything went wrong?
Oh, Edward. After 20 years, and you still can't credit me with the ability to read the signs. The new issue of Turf and Tote is at your elbow, and you've not looked at it. When you got home last night, you didn't want to watch the last episode of the Dick Francis serial. In bed, you ignored me. And you've been too preoccupied to notice my existence this morning. Well, 2 things can go wrong on circuit for you, the hotel or the hearing. I've vetted the Royal at Stanley several times, and the service has always been superb. Therefore, it must have been the trial.
Oh, I should know better than to try to hide something from you, Caroline.
So something did go wrong. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, or I'll put out your check suit for Sandown.
No, not the check suit, no. Jockey clubs threaten me with a red card if I wear that again to a meeting.
So what was it then?
Oh, well, it's just that the trial wasn't as smooth as I like my trials to be.
Bagley prosecuting?
Yes.
And Savage leaving for the defence?
Yes.
Don't tell me that Silks of their caliber gave you a bad time.
No, of course not.
And there was no legal wrangling before an empty jury box, and you didn't have to direct the jury on a majority verdict. It says here that they were out for less than 15 minutes.
Now, the evidence against Snaith was irrefutable. If you read on, you'll see that there were several outbursts from the dock. In the end, I had to pass sentence on Snaith in his absence.
And that's what's upset you?
I suppose so.
Oh, rubbish. There was McQueen last year and Phillips the year before. Oh, then there was that character who threatened you with his business associates before the police dragged him out of the dock.
I may have overstepped the mark in my summing up.
Swayed the jury?
Possibly.
But you said the evidence was irrefutable. He fiddled 30,000 and you gave him 9 years.
It would have been 7. I tagged on 2 years because 10,000 hadn't been accounted for.
But still less than the maximum sentence, Edward.
He was a mild-looking, bespectacled, clerical-grade civil servant type. Sort of man you'd expect to have a loving wife, a mortgage on a semi, neat flower beds in his front garden, and a family saloon in the garage that he cleans every Sunday morning. Oh. And yet...
Yes?
He sat quietly in the dock all through the trial, not even looking up when new witnesses were sworn in. He remained like that until his bookmaker gave evidence for the prosecution. From then onwards, there was a complete transformation. He interrupted the bookmaker, Slope, half a dozen times, saying that Slope was lying. And then he interrupted my summing up when I came to Slope's evidence.
Was his evidence essential to the prosecution?
Oh, no. No, Bagley had already built up a convincing case that Snaith had taken the money. And he called Slope because he wanted to establish that Snaith hadn't spent all the money as the defence were trying to prove, but that Snaith still had about 10,000 salted away somewhere.
Which Bagley successfully proved and which earned Snaith an extra 2 years. So what?
It was the hatred for me that blazed out of Snaith's eyes before I had him sent below. Suddenly he wasn't the mild-mannered, bespectacled clerk. In that moment, at that exact moment, time suddenly seemed to stand still for 1,000 years. And I found myself staring into the eyes of the devil.
Left, right, halt! Up straight, Snaith. Feet together, hands at side, eyes straight ahead. Straight, I said. You'll address Mr. Drummond as Sir, Governor, or Mr. Drummond. Understand?
Yes.
Your rival, sir, Thomas Roger Snaith.
Thank you, Mr. Brunt. You may leave us.
Sir.
Take your seat, Snaith.
Thank you, Governor.
Welcome to Tower Mills Prison, Snaith. An institution for rehabilitated criminals about to re-enter the outside world, and first offenders who have just left it. Men from opposite sides of the spectrum, so to speak, and yet the system works remarkably well. We find that the old hands provide a cautionary warning to the newcomers. Now, this is an excellent report from the prison where you were held on remand. It's a promising start, Snaith.
I started the way I intend to go on, Governor.
Well, I'm pleased, Snaith, very pleased. We find that most prisoners at Tower Mills usually earn their full remission of 1/3 of their sentence. Now, your sentence was...
9 years.
Well, carry on as you have been. You'll be out in 6. You've an appeal pending?
Yes, Governor.
Well, you'll be allowed to see your legal advisers in private at any reasonable time. My policy is firmness, administered with compassion. It's a flexible policy. So flexible that it can be applied to or withdrawn from individual prisoners according to their behavior. You're an accountant.
Yes, Governor.
Yeah. You know, we don't get many accountants in here. Too honest, I suppose, or too clever. Except in your case, eh? Well, that's a stroke of luck for us. You run a market garden. You know, small farm. It's now part of the prison.
I saw the glass houses from the van, Governor. It looks a well-run operation.
It is, Snaith. It even makes a small profit. The trouble is the paperwork's in a bit of a mess. Receipts, invoices...
I'd be delighted to help out.
Why, can't make you a
Of course, I don't want you to feel that you're under any sort of pressure.
No, really, Governor, I'd be delighted to help in any way I can.
Oh, splendid. Well, that's settled then. There's a small office attached to the storage shed that you can use. I'll tell Mr. Brunt that you'll be taking the paperwork worries off his shoulders. Of course, you won't actually be handling money.
I'd rather not anyway, Governor.
It's just the question of your room. We don't like to call themselves. I'm putting you in with Charles Fox. Used to be quite a rogue in his day. He's being released in 6 months, so he won't mind sharing.
Well, thank you, Governor.
Well, good luck then, Snaith. Continue in your present attitude, and I'm sure we shall get on well together.
You know, my dear, it never ceases to amaze me how a member of the Carthage family, with their long history of staying out of kitchens, should have mastered the culinary arts as you have. This cheesecake is delicious.
Actually, Dad, it came out of a packet.
Ah, a housewife should never confess. The burden of proof must constitutionally rest with the recipients of her wares. Did you really drag me away from London merely to sample some frightful convenience food you found mouldering on a supermarket shelf?
I wanted to talk to you about
Edward. Isn't it always about Edward? What is it this time? His summer colds, a new allergy?
Oh, Dad.
You know, my dear, it was a mistake you two not having children. Something other than Edward for you to worry about.
You know perfectly well that we wanted children.
I'm an offensive old man, my dear. I wouldn't blame you if you slung me out. All right, what's on your mind?
Edward hasn't been sleeping or eating properly. It started last week after he'd sentenced some swindler for defrauding his firm.
Snaith, I read the report. What about it?
Something about the trial has upset Edward.
What?
He won't say.
Then how do you know it's the Snaith trial? It's upsetting.
Because I know him. And besides, he made some comment about Snaith's behavior. Normally, he hardly ever discusses a case unless he's got a long judgment to write.
I suppose he's at the Sandown meeting.
Yes. You will talk to him when he gets back, won't you?
When does he get back?
About 7.
Well, I've got to be back at the House of Lords about 4.
Do you think he's worried in case he's misdirected the jury?
What's happened to your unshakable confidence in his ability?
Which you share, Dad.
I would not have recommended his appointment to Her Majesty as the youngest circuit judge in the country if I thought it likely that he would go misdirecting juries. Where does he keep his judge's notebook? In his den?
Well, he always keeps his desk locked.
Good Lord.
What's the matter?
There must be every edition of Turf and Tote here for the past 10 years.
Well, he likes to keep them.
And what's this?
Oh, that's his racehorse card index. 1 card for every horse. Parentage, trainers, wins, everything. A full history on virtually every racehorse in the world.
Good Lord. Well, I knew he liked his racing, but this... And his racing books outnumber his law books.
Oh, so what? He's got all the law books he needs. And besides, I like him to have an outside interest. It benefits his career.
But my dear child, this isn't an interest. It's an obsession.
Oh, don't be silly, Dad.
Does he bet heavily?
He'll have a few bets at Sandown this afternoon and lose about £3. That's his average. He spends a lot less on horses than you do on drink.
Is that what he tells you? £3 per meeting?
We have a joint bank account. If he was spending more, I'd know about it. And we don't have secrets.
Except that he's not telling you what's been worrying him.
Well, that's different.
So are public attitudes to gambling from what they were 20 years ago.
And what's that supposed to mean?
Are you still as ambitious for Edward as you used to be?
Well, you know the answer to that. I want Edward to reach the top.
And he will, my dear. He's young by the standards of our profession. He's extremely competent and he's popular. I've no doubt that he'll be appointed to the High Court within 7 years. A High Court judge before he's 50. And after that, well, who knows?
But
all this, racing journals, card indexes and so on, could have an adverse effect on his career. I not say it will, but it could have.
I thought racing was the sport of kings.
Well, unlike judges, kings are above the law, and they're not appointed.
Oh, don't be ridiculous. What possible damage to Edward's career can a mild flutter now and then do?
It's a reminder that Edward is human. The public doesn't want to know what judges are, but they definitely aren't human. And if they are, they mustn't show it. Judges are creatures that wear funny clothes, which, like trees, change colors with the seasons. Their natural habitat is the courtroom. They've never heard of punk rock, the Rolling Stones, or the Beatles. They live on a diet of facetious counsels. They don't drink or drive fast cars or copulate. And they most certainly don't bet on horses.
You do say some ludicrous things, Dad.
Well, maybe. But being a political animal, I've learned to sense when the wind's going to change. It's going to change soon in public attitudes towards gambling, just as it has changed towards sex. 50 years ago, no one minded if a cabinet minister had a mistress. Today, they're kept under surveillance by the special branch to make sure they don't. For people in public life, the so-called permissive society doesn't exist. If you're still as ambitious for Edward as you used to be, it's up to you to persuade him to moderate his interest in racing. It's a weakness.
A weakness?
What's that, Squire?
I'm just thinking aloud, Foxy, wondering if judges have weaknesses.
How many eggs from your row?
20 dozen.
Bleating hens. Governor's got a weakness for blaming me when they're not laying proper. Reckons I'm not feeding them right. I mean, how can you feed them not right, eh? You just loads their mash into the automatic feeders, and they just help themselves from the troughs.
Poor creatures shut up in cages like this all their lives.
Too stupid to know they're alive, chickens. Had a woman MP nosing round last year. Made a fuss because we weren't locked up. And she come in here and made another fuss because the chickens were. People.
We all have our idiosyncrasies, Foxy.
Oh, what?
Inconsistencies, weaknesses.
Oh. It's a funny thing. Whenever somebody like you, educated and that, gets to being looked after by Her Majesty, he always turns out to be an accountant or something. How did you do it? I mean, 30 G's, big league stuff.
Simple, really. I set up a company that invoiced my company automatically each month for goods and services provided.
So what's illegal about that, then?
Well, no goods and services were provided.
Oh.
The company I set up existed only on paper. The names and addresses of the directors were fictitious. Its only assets were a post office box number to receive the monthly check.
What you wrote?
Yes.
Clever.
For a short time, yes. For a long time, stupid.
Any of it left?
The judge thought so, which is why the bastard gave me 9 years.
Who was it?
His Honour Judge Edward Dawlish.
Crawley Dawley?
You know.
I'd say I know Crawley. 15 years ago, he defended me on a dock brief. Young, I'd say. Green as Epping Forest. But he got me off. 5 years ago, I'm in court again, and who should be in the high chair but Crawley Dawley? I was so shattered, I nearly pleaded guilty.
Why is he called Crawley?
Why do you call him a bastard, then?
Because that's what he is.
Yeah. The new ones always blame the judge.
He swayed the jury against me.
They say that as well. Look, Squire, take my tip. You're on appeal, so let your lawyers worry about what the judge said or did.
Lawyers won't do what I intend doing to Dawlish, Foxy.
What's that, Squire?
I intend to destroy him utterly. To wreck his career, his whole life. And I'll do it legally. When I've discovered his Achilles heel.
A tough old Achilles. I'll tell you how he come by the handle, Crawley. Because he married right. Mind you, I've heard that it was her that made a set for him. But he got called Crawley and it stuck. He married Lord Carthage's daughter. And you know who Lord Carthage is now?
Yes, the name rings a bell.
Does a sight more than that, old son. Lord Carthage is the Lord Chancellor. The boss of all the judges himself. So you can see why you best think again.
Wrong, Foxy. It'll make the task that much more interesting. And infinitely more rewarding.
Company, come.
Ah, Snape. I was told you were here. How are you getting on with the paperwork?
I'm very sorry, Governor, but I've not been able to get into the office. Mr. Brunt went on leave without giving me the key.
I specifically asked him to hand over before he left. All right, I'll unlock for you. How's the egg situation today, Fox?
Not 50 dozen, Mr. Drummond.
Oh, damn birds. They're costing more to feed than the return we get on the eggs. And we're buying feed in bulk. Hardly any eggs are going into the prison kitchens because we have to meet our commitments to a local supermarket. Do you know anything about poultry farming, Snaith?
I'm afraid not, Governor, but I can always learn.
No one does around here. We inherited this battery house when the Home Office acquired the farm. Oh, I've a mind to sell off these wretched birds, use it for storage.
Not a very cost-effective store, I would have thought, Governor. It's too big, and there must be a lot of capital tied up in the ventilation and heating equipment and the automatic feeding.
Well, I'll think about it. I'll show you the office. And you too, Fox.
Yes, sir.
You can help Snaith carry it out. I dare say Mr. Brunt's left it in a mess. As I thought. A mess. Still, it'll keep you busy, Snaith. Oh, papers everywhere. No wonder Mr. Brunt can never find receipts.
It's the sort of thing I've straightened out before, Governor. Metal spiked filing system and no proper books. I'll make a start on it now.
Yes, stroke of luck you coming here, Snaith. Well, for us, that is. Well, I'll leave you to it. Now, lock up and bring me the key before the evening meal.
Stupid fool.
There's plenty of prison governors worse than Drummer, Squire. And don't you let his nature fool you. He's a real tough when he wants. Blimey! I've not taken it out.
Where is it?
Hey, don't answer it, Squire. You'll lose privileges and that.
What privileges?
Well, just being in Tower Mill, Squire. If you've been in Durham and Albany, you know what I mean. Oh, you stupid twit.
Yes?
Brunt?
Yes.
Castle here, Tower Mill Supermarket. We're exercising our right to cancel the contract if your flaming eggs fall below standard. Now, you've had fair warning. Our customers' goodwill is more important than your cut-price eggs. Paper-thin shells that crack if you look at them, incorrect grading, dirty boxes, and God knows what else. Yesterday's consignment is the final straw. What in hell's name do you think we can do with 50 dozen? We shift that many within 10 minutes of opening. You'll have to feed them to your inmates, because I'm damned if I'm going to unload them on my customers any more from next week. Good day to you.
That Drummer's going to have to get rid of the battery house after all.
Who was it?
The Tower Mill Supermarket. They're not buying any more eggs.
Yeah. You can't do that. You'll be crucified.
Well, I'm doing it, aren't I? And no one's going to find out unless you tell them. You wouldn't do that, would you, Foxy? Now, leave me, please.
Of course I won't, Grass. But you're mad. You could have a nice soft number here. All right, I'm going.
Hello?
Hello, Marion. Guess who?
Tom!
How are you keeping, love?
Tom! It is you.
Of course it's me, silly.
Oh, but I didn't think you'd be allowed to make calls. Oh, Tom. It's so good to hear your voice. I've missed you terribly.
I've missed you, love.
I'm coming to visit you tomorrow.
No, you mustn't. Now, don't visit me, for God's sake.
But why not, Tom? I said I'd stick by you.
We'll see each other, love. I promise, but I don't want you visiting me. I don't want the screws here seeing you as my wife.
You're picking up the words, Tom. You said you wouldn't.
I'll be picking up more than that if I can work out some sort of plan. Now, listen carefully. I don't know how long I'll be able to talk. I want you to put the house on the market. Now, just listen. Have the house valued and sell it. You've got power of attorney, so there shouldn't be any problems. It'll be snapped up immediately. You know how they're selling. Then move up here into a Tower Mills hotel under your maiden name while you're looking round for somewhere else.
Oh, that'll be nice, Tom. I want to be near you.
Now, sell the car and buy a large van, a transit or a comma, something like that. Buy it in your maiden name. Yes. Take it to a signwriter and have him paint T&M Trading on both sides and the back. No company or limited, just T&M Trading. Have you got that?
Yes. But why, Tom?
Well, I'm not 100% sure myself just yet, but just do it. See Johnny Felton about an accommodation address, then find a small printer and have him run off 100 letters.
Coffee for you, Edward.
Huh? Oh, thank you, darling. Just what I needed.
Difficult judgment?
Worst imaginable. That patents infringements business. Oh, luckily I adjourned until the end of the month, so there's no hurry.
But this is the Snaith indictment, Edward.
Hmm?
And the trial transcript.
Oh, no, yes, it was typed up because it'll be needed by the Court of Appeal.
But why have you got a copy? If you've granted an appeal certificate, it's out of your hands.
Yeah, well, it's shorthand, right? It was new. I thought I'd just take a look at it while it's still fresh in my mind. Just in case.
It's still worrying you, isn't it? Tell me about it.
I walked past the Coach and Horses at lunchtime today. It was full of juniors, laughing and drinking.
You didn't join them.
No, I did not, but I was tempted. My God, I was tempted.
It would be most unseemly.
Well, Farlane does. And Kinsey.
I doubt if Father has them in mind as future puny judges.
Caroline, have you been indulging in political maneuvering?
Daddy mentioned to me that there was talk of increasing the strength of the Queen's bench. It would be a marvellous step up.
Which I would rather not take. And if I did want to take it, then I'd want to take it without your help.
You've got where you are on your own ability.
With a little bit of help from your friend.
I'd never tried to influence Father. I haven't had to. He's the one who's always said that you'd go right to the top, the very top. It's what I want for you and what I want you to want.
Yes, I didn't want to become a judge. I was perfectly happy in Chambers. Well, you were so over the moon with excitement that I hadn't the heart to turn it down. Everyone's assumed responsibility for my ambitions. First, my father pushing me into law, when all I wanted in the world was to run the stud farm, and then you came along and convinced me that my lack of ambition was merely lack of self-confidence.
And all this because of Snape?
And all this is because I have sentenced a man to imprisonment for longer than he deserves.
Because you didn't believe that bookmaker's evidence?
I'm certain Slope lied. I know that sort of bookie, half a dozen addresses in as many years, always on the move.
Daddy thinks that you know a little too much about bookmakers. He said he
Maybe
thought...
I should have dropped a hint to the jury in my summing up.
Oh, why didn't you?
Well, the prosecution established Slope's probity, and the defense failed to take it. So what was I to say to the jury when I came to summarizing Slope's evidence? Suggest it was all a pack of lies because I just didn't like the look of the man's face? No, the real prisoner in a courtroom isn't the man in the dock, darling, but the judge. Oh. No, yes, counsels can decide the line their case will take, and juries are perfectly free to return the most extraordinary verdicts and have to answer to no one. But the judge... Everyone watches the judge and screams for his head if he's proved not to possess extrasensory perception. If I had the ability of a judge like Snowley or Redcar, I would have thought of a perfectly legitimate way of conveying my feelings about Slope to the jury. But...
You do have the ability, darling. All you lack is the faith in yourself.
I did have the ability to pick the right wife. Where would I be without you, eh? Still messing about with counsel's opinions. Too nervous about poking my nose in a courtroom to be given decent briefs.
You'd be where you are now, Edward.
If you say so, my dear. We need a break. How about going down to Somerset for the weekend? Eh?
Oh.
Now, don't say you can't. Father's bought a new horse.
Damn it, man, you had no right to go away, leaving that phone connected.
But the post office
I
said
am
that they
not
would...
interested in what the post office said. What concerns me is that there could have been a breach of security because you went on leave without removing the phone from the farm office, which you knew I intended handing over to Snaith.
With respect, sir, it never occurred to me that you'd hand it over without checking it first.
Yeah, well, luckily no harm has been done. Snaith said that he didn't know the phone was there. It was hidden under a lot of old farming newspapers.
And you believed him, sir?
Snaith is turning out to be the best prisoner we've ever had. Look at these letters he's prepared. Hours he's put into them. Hours. Oh, you can return them to him.
Sir.
No, I'll take them down to him myself. I tell you this, Brunt. Snaith is obviously determined to earn his full remission. If he says he never used that phone, then I'm prepared to believe it. Morning, Snaith.
Oh, good morning, sir.
Here are your ledgers. They're superb, Snaith. They're absolutely first class. I often wonder how we used to manage without you.
Actually, sir, you didn't. I'm just going over the VAT returns for the past 9 months. I'm afraid Mr. Brunt has made a number of errors in farm accounts.
Really? nothing serious, I hope.
Oh, minor things that can be put right on our next return. One of our largest outputs is fuel for the tractors and farm machinery. Mr. Brunt has been claiming back VAT at the standard rate instead of 12.5%. Customs and excise owe us £43.10.
Oh, splendid, Snaith.
There is a couple of things, sir.
Yes?
The egg van driver tells me that he won't be collecting the eggs next week.
Yes, the wretched supermarket are cancelling their contract. I had a letter from the manager yesterday. Why?
The driver gave me this address and phone number. T&M Trading. Apparently they're a firm who've rented a stall in the Tower Mills covered market to sell local farm produce. Maybe they'd be interested in buying our eggs.
I'm thinking of closing the battery house down.
Which brings me to my second point, sir. I've been checking the figures and agree with you that the egg production is bad. With your permission, sir, I'd be grateful if you'd let me run the house for an experimental period, say a month, to see if I can improve things.
Oh. Well, what do you know about poultry farming?
I've been reading all these books and magazines. Just for a month, sir.
All right, then.
It would help, sir, if you'd let Foxy help me and no one else.
Huh?
There's an article in one of these mags that says the fewer people allowed in a battery house, the better. It's here somewhere. It says that laying hens should be disturbed as little as possible.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter, Snaith. I'll take your word for it. Oh, are you suggesting that you and Foxy take over the work of the cleaning parties as well?
Yes, sir. Just the two of us allowed in the house.
What? Not even prison officers? Oh, no, I can't have that. I'm sorry.
It's not as if we'd be able to get up to anything, sir. Not in a battery house. Just for a month, sir. A trial period.
Oh, well, it's most irregular, Snaith. All right, then. A month. And if there's no improvement, we'll revert to normal procedures. Understood?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. You'll contact T&M Trading, then?
Yes, I'll call them immediately.
Get them to send someone round, sir, and I'll do my best to negotiate a good price.
You've got a colossal cheek, Snaith. All right. On your shoulders rests the entire responsibility for the success of the operation.
It will be a huge success, sir. I do promise you that. So T&M Trading have sent a woman, Mr. Brunt. Well, I did practice discrimination, so why can't I see her?
You may be the governor's blue-eyed boy, Snaith, but the rules don't allow prisoners to see women alone.
What rules, Mr. Brunt?
Home Office regulations, Sonny.
I must read them sometime. See if they have anything to say about petrol intended for farming machinery disappearing into light blue coupes.
You want to see her in here?
Oh, why not? It'd be nice and private.
Miss Parsons, if you'd come in here, please.
Oh, Miss Parsons, please take a seat.
Oh, thank you.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee?
2 coffees, please, Mr. Brunt, and close the door behind you.
Oh.
Darling.
Oh, my love.
Oh, I know, sweetheart. I know.
Oh, it's been such a long time, Tom. Oh, I felt terrible not being able to visit you. Why wouldn't you let me? Why did I have to stay?
Is that market stall fixed up?
Yes, it's ready. Oh, Tom, it is lovely.
Good. Now, we haven't much time. Here's the price you're to offer for the eggs based on a daily collection of 50 dozen size 3s unboxed.
But surely that's too high, Tom.
Which means that Drummond can't refuse it.
Then how are we going to...
You saw that battery house?
Yes. It's huge.
It's big, all right. There's over 6,000 laying hens in there, except that they aren't laying, not properly anyway. Those birds were 12 weeks old when the prison bought the farm and took the battery house over. They're being fed on a grower's mash that wasn't changed to a layer's mash at 20 weeks. Consequently, the poor birds aren't receiving the correct diet to enable them to lay. There's no calcium for shell formation and so on. Well, I've put 200 birds onto layer's mash as an experiment, and they've been laying 175 eggs per day, nearly 15 dozen eggs.
Yes, but I don't see what I'm
As I gradually put all the birds onto layer's mash, production will go up to 400 dozen eggs per day.
Gosh.
You will buy 50 dozen each day legitimately, but Foxy and I will load 300 dozen into the van. The other 100 will go to the prison kitchens. you'll have an extra 250 dozen eggs.
Tom!
Sell them by undercutting the competition by a few pence per dozen, and you should clear over £100 per day. Well, £700 per week is a respectable income, wouldn't you say, love? Makes being in here almost worthwhile.
Yes, but Tom, they'll check the van. They had a good look at it when I came in.
They won't be interested in counting eggs.
But surely they'll see that I'm taking out more eggs than...
How many eggs are there in that secretary's over there?
Well, I don't know.
Guess.
About 200?
They're nearer 400.
Well, it's difficult when they're stacked
It's
like
difficult to estimate. Which is why, my love, if I play our cards right, you and I ought to make around £50,000 over the next 18 months that the birds will be in lay. Enough to see that you're okay with a bit spare for expenses.
Tom, it all sounds terribly risky. I mean, robbing a prison.
I don't suppose it's ever been done before. An inside job.
What expenses, Tom?
Dealing with His Honour, Judge Edward Dawlish, won't be cheap.
Oh. Some horse, eh, boy? He's magnificent, Dad. Beautiful. I'll tell you something. He slowed up in the dip between Topfield and the meadow where the drainage is bad.
Rubbish, boy. He can hold it straight through an Irish bog. Can't you, my beauty?
It wasn't much. He's out of Indy's Star.
That's right.
And Rock Hardy. And both of them used to slow up badly, even after a light fall of rain before the meeting. You remember that anti-post bet on close encounter I talked you into last year?
60 to 1. Could do with a few more lucky tips like that, my boy.
What do you mean that wasn't lucky? I knew damn well that Rock Hardy would flag halfway through the court. I know the headmaster at one of the local schools. Boys have got a rain gauge set up. He keeps me posted. I can usually make a pretty good guess as to the state of the water table on the course just before a meeting.
You go to that trouble?
Sure. Oh, now, don't you start, Dad.
Start what, boy?
I wish you wouldn't call me that.
Not dignified for a judge, eh, boy? It can't be any worse than gambling.
Dad, I don't gamble. Not much, anyway.
So why are you so sensitive about it?
I am not sensitive about it.
About what?
My gambling. Oh, damn.
Just as well your father-in-law made you a judge if you were as easy to trip up as that when you were a barrister. How is the noble lord, by the way?
Well,
Caroline?
So. How come you didn't ask earlier?
For the same reason I didn't ask you why she's not come down with you. Because she doesn't approve of me.
No one approves of you, Ben Dawlish. If you ever come up before me, I'd consider it my duty to shove you away for at least 20 years. Even if a skilled counsel, by some miracle of the judicial process, managed to prove you innocent. That's it.
What's the matter?
Just look at that sunset. Isn't that something?
Happens every night, just before dusk.
Strange, isn't it? How a chance event can suddenly unleash a flood of childhood memories. You remember Appledore?
Yes.
Used to ride him up to this ridge in the summer. Just to look at the sunset. Poor old Appledore. God. If only I hadn't pushed him at that wall. It was just along here, wasn't it? Huh? Yes, it was. It was just here. I remember this oak. And that slight rise just before the wall. I remember thinking that if I aimed Appledore at that...
You remember?
Why, yeah. Yes, it's a bit hazy, but...
But you could never remember anything afterwards. The doctor and your mother said that it was probably a good thing.
I remember saying to Appledore that we could gallop towards the sunset, ignoring all obstacles, just like a steeplechase. It would be a ride that went on forever and ever. And ever.
You rode Appledore at obstacles on that evening?
Oh, yeah.
Into the sunset?
But I thought you knew.
It was an hour after sunset when your mother and I found you. As it's a low ball, we thought that Appledore had been up to his old tricks again and deliberately thrown you.
It wasn't his fault. I think I always knew that. No, I hadn't forgotten it. It's just that I didn't want to believe it was my fault, and somehow my brain contrived to make me forget. Anyway, it was so many years ago.
I had to shoot Appledore.
Yes, I know, Dad. Let's forget it. I'm sorry I brought the subject up.
He hadn't broken a leg. The following morning, while your mother stayed with you at the hospital, I went out looking for him, because he wasn't with you.
But when I came home...
You were nearly a year in hospital. That morning, I went out looking for him with the 2-2. He was grazing down by the stream. Not a scratch on him. I think he knew why I was carrying the rifle. It was the first and last time that I ever had to shoot a horse. Except that I didn't have to shoot him.
Dad, I'm terribly sorry. I didn't know.
As you say, best forgotten, eh? Come on, boy. Let's see what we can find in the freezer for dinner.
Yeah.
Pity Caroline didn't come down. I was looking forward to a weekend of decent cooking. Not bad, eh, boy?
Oh, do stop calling me that, Dad.
I've a master chef's touch when it comes to thawing out a dinner.
You ever thought of marrying again?
Nope. But there's a new stable girl, an Australian, who has it on her mind. More plump.
An Australian stable girl?
You should see your face. I can tell exactly what's going through your mind. How the devil do I explain this to Caroline? Eh?
Yeah. I rather imagine she would flip. Yeah. Is there a girl? Or a woman, as it ought to be at your age?
Nope. Let's open another bottle. Marvellous stuff. You know, boy, I often wonder why you went to up and marry such a snob as Caroline.
Oh, Caroline's form of snobbery is pretty inoffensive.
Maybe. She's done your career good, I'll give her that.
Meaning I've no ability of my own.
Well, she hasn't done any harm, has she? Daughter of the Lord Chancellor and all that must count for something. Your mother would be pleased. She wanted you to make it more than anything else in the world. Now, there was a real snob.
Mother?
Remember that team of Brewer's drays we used to stable? No, maybe you don't. Frightful row about that your mother and me had. Lasted a week. She damn near left me.
I'd no idea.
Oh, I always towed the line in the end.
I'll bet.
I did, boy. You damn well bet your life I did. If I didn't, it meant that I'd lose the two things that meant more to me than anything else in the world. Her and you.
But you were happy.
We both loved one another in our different ways. But you were the knife she held pointed at my throat. You know, boy, you can go happily through life with a knife at your throat. Well, you can do just about everything. But don't make a sudden move.
I think you're a little drunk, Dad.
It was her who wanted you to go into law. It was her who got you that pupillage in Sir Clancy's chamber.
But he was a client of yours.
But it was Mary who worked on him.
I thought it was you who pushed me into law. I thought you were the driving force.
It was Mary, every inch of the way.
You knew I wanted to go into the business, Dad. You knew that I wanted nothing else.
Oh, do you think I didn't fight her? Queer, isn't it? In stories, the son never wants to follow his father into the family business.
I wanted to work with horses.
Well, she was right in the long run. Everything's turned out well for you, hasn't it?
I wish I knew, Dad. I wish to God I knew.
Sit down, Snaith. I expect you know what this is about?
Yes, sir.
I've just had a phone call from the Home Office. The appeal judges gave their verdict 30 minutes ago. In the light of the evidence supplied by the Inland Revenue as a result of their investigation into the affairs of Harold Slope, your sentence has been reduced by 4.5 years.
4
years and 6 months. Exactly half of your original sentence. And you'll be hearing from your legal advisors tomorrow, of course. I thought you'd like to hear right away.
Yes, sir. Yes, thank you, sir.
It seems that their lordships are satisfied you have gambled away the money you embezzled from your employers and that you haven't got a large sum sorted away.
But I just can't believe it, sir.
I should have the confirmation tomorrow.
So now I'll be able to apply to the parole board after
you've served a third of your sentence, 18 months. You've already served 3 months. So carry on as you have been, and I'll give you a strong recommendation for release on license. You should be a free man within 15 months.
You're being stupid. Read what the appeal judges said. Go on, read it again and tell me whether there's any criticism of you, either implied or direct, on the way that you handled Snape's trial. There's nothing, is there?
Halving the sentence? There doesn't have to be.
The Inland Revenue's raid on Slope's house produced evidence that wasn't available at the time of Snape's trial. So please, in the name of God, tell me how any blame can be steered at you.
And supposing the Inland Revenue hadn't decided to investigate Slope, what then?
Well, it's obvious that they decided to take a look at him because of the trial.
You think so?
It's obvious that that's what's happened.
But supposing they hadn't? A miscarriage of justice would have taken place perpetrated by me.
Which didn't happen.
Which might have.
Oh, we're just going round in circles.
Should have warned.
You're not resigning, Edward. You're too far up the ladder to go chucking yourself off because of a ridiculous misplaced delusion that you're not capable of remaining a judge. You quit, and so do I.
Because you like being married to a judge?
Because you'll be throwing both our lives away. Oh, as we haven't any children, I've sunk everything. My love, my dreams, ambition, everything into you. Nearly 20 years. Oh, you want to throw it all away.
Sorry, my darling. I'm sorry. Sorry. Please forgive me. I didn't think.
You won't resign, will you, Edward? Oh, promise me you won't.
Of course I won't.
And you'll tear up the letter to Daddy.
So I'll do it right now. It's good of you to come and see me, Miss Jarvis.
Well, I could hardly refuse a judicial summons, Judge.
It's not quite that. You led the Inland Revenue team that investigated Harold Slope, the bookmaker.
Yes?
You don't have to answer these questions, but I'd be most grateful if you did. And I assure you that I won't disclose anything you tell me.
What do you want to know?
Did you decide to investigate Slope because of the Snaith trial?
No. You look surprised.
Then why did you investigate him?
I'm in charge of a small team that visits Inspector of Taxes offices throughout the country. The local inspector gives us a list of names he's not happy about, but hasn't the resources to deal with, and we put the names in a hat and pull out one or two to receive the full treatment.
You pick the names out of the hat?
We can put suspected evaders under a 24-hour surveillance, tap their phones if we can prove it's justified, even raid homes and offices.
Yes, I know all about your powers, but out of the hat?
Well, a slight exaggeration there, Judge. Actually, we type up a list and stick a pin in it. Is anything wrong?
That's interesting, Foxy.
What's that, Squire?
Did you know the Lord Chancellor is eighth in precedence for the throne?
Told you he was big, didn't I?
He presides over the House of Lords and has a vote and is a member of the Cabinet.
Sure.
He's head of the Land Register, the Public Record Office, and he's the public trustee, custodian of the Great Seal, head of the Chancery Division, president of the Supreme Court. God, the list is endless.
All them jobs, and I can't cope with a few egg trays.
Don't drop any more. A circuit judge can be dismissed by the Lord Chancellor, but the dismissal of a High Court judge is a more complex procedure involving an address by both Houses of Parliament. You don't suppose Edward Dawlish is a High Court judge, do you, Foxy?
Oh, you're not going on about Crawley. What's the point? You got your sentence off. Be thankful for that, I say.
You've got another 2 weeks, Foxy.
That's right.
What will you do?
Dunno, Squire. Social Security and a lucky horse now and then.
And you'll get into debt, right, and you'll pinch a car.
Yeah.
And you'll be back in here.
I reckon this is the last time I'll see Tower Mill, Squire, finding another car. You know, when I first started knocking off cars, the law would leave you alone. We was reckoned harmless. Now, with the price of cars gone mad, you're in trouble. Look at that Range Rover. 12,000 quid they valued it at with extras. Serious crime league, that is. World's gone right round a twist. I'd like a job, Squire, straight up I would. But who'd have me?
You can drive?
Of course I can drive. Who ever heard of a car thief who couldn't drive?
Ask Miss Parsons if she'd give you a job.
What, her that collects the eggs?
She looks as though she could do with some help. Why don't you ask?
Oh, I wouldn't like to, Squire. Work for a woman.
Would you like me to ask her for you?
Oh, yeah. Oh, thanks a lot, Squire.
6,000 clear on the 9-week period, but that's fantastic, Marion.
You agree the figures?
You've not missed a penny.
9 weeks. It seems more like 9 years. You've no idea how tiring it is.
Oh, I can understand that. You have done a marvellous job.
I don't think I'll be able to keep it up, Tom.
I've arranged for you to have some help. Fox is leaving in 2 weeks. He needs a job.
Foxy? You mean he knows what's going on?
No, and even if he did, I don't think it would matter. There's a curious camaraderie among the criminal fraternity. They've stepped outside society's rules, so they'll have to make their own.
I could certainly use the help.
Well, so could I.
How?
As you're far too busy providing the finance for the plan, I'll be able to make use of Fox's talents to put it into operation.
Snaith?
Sir?
Morning. Morning, Snaith.
Good morning, sir.
Just the fellow I wanted to see. Tell me, in your company's secretary days, did you ever negotiate the purchase of machinery?
Well, yes, sir, quite often.
Oh, splendid. I've got a little job for you. It means a trip out with Mr. Brunt to take a look at a couple of second-hand Fordson tractors. Now, if Mr. Brunt says they're okay, see if you can beat the price down. He's not very good at that sort of thing.
I'd be pleased to help, sir.
Splendid.
Where exactly are these tractors?
Downey Racecourse.
I thought racing meant a comfortable seat in the grandstand and white-jacketed waiters serving champagne.
Oh, that's not racing. Down here is racing.
Damn shooting stickler. How do you manage to get comfortable on the blasted thing?
Oh, it takes years of practice.
Which you've had, I suppose.
Don't you like racing, sir?
Loathe it. Especially down here among the bookies and the razzmatazz. Sordid.
Then why did you insist on coming with me? Did Caroline put you up to it to see that I didn't bet too heavily? Huh?
Oh, no.
Curious task for the Lord Chancellor.
She wants me to have a little chat with you.
Ah.
Hello there. Oh, you a great dead old boy. Great dead.
Yes, you backed Ogden in the first race.
20 on the nose and 33 to 1.
Yes.
Marvelous, what? Did what you said. Always follow the Colonel's advice.
Yes.
Shades of sympathy, what?
Yes, good. Now, if you'll just excuse me.
Who's your friend, old boy? I thought you were a loner. Well, careful. I must get a bet on for the next race. Stick with the Colonel. Well,
who is the Colonel?
He writes a racing column in the Turf and the Tote.
Is he good?
Oh, yeah. Well, how should I know? I don't bet that much.
Sorry, didn't mean to go prodding nerves.
They're coming out. Can I have the binoculars a minute?
Oh, sure.
Thanks. Yes. Barn dance looks very good.
Number 7. What's the matter?
Look.
Good heavens, Edward. What the hell is wrong? Edward. Do you mind? Stand there.
Goodbye, Doctor. Thank you.
What did he say?
He thinks Edward's been under a strain lately. He's asleep now.
Did he say what it was he saw?
I didn't ask him.
Must have been something pretty extraordinary to make him pass out like that. Grown men don't keel over in a dead faint without reason.
Well, he said snake just before he passed out.
That's what it sounded like.
Snake? It doesn't make sense. Oh, I've been so worried about him, Dad. He's been miserable and hardly eating. He snaps my head off if I as much as open my mouth. Everything I do...
Maybe he needs a break.
I'd never get him to take a holiday.
I wasn't thinking of that. The president of the Wotan B Nuclear Power Station Inquiry hasn't been nominated yet. All the signs are that it's going to be a major battle spread over the best part of 18 months. The anti-fast breeder brigade are amassing their forces, and all the Queen's men are amassing theirs. It would take Edward out of the courtroom for a few months.
And put him in the public eye?
Smack in the middle of the pupil, my girl.
Will it enhance his career?
If he handles it well, I'd make a shrewd guess that it'll bring his appointment to the High Court forward by about 2 years.
And that will put him firmly on course to make Lord Chief Justice, yes?
I don't appoint the Lord Chief Justice, Caroline. But the younger he is when he makes the High Court...
I'd like that, Daddy.
Scheming little minx. I said that there hasn't been a nomination yet.
You'll fix it, won't you?
I'll have a word with the Energy Secretary in the morning. But I want you to understand that I'm putting Edward's name forward because I think he's the best man for the job.
Of course, Daddy. I'll agree to understand that.
It's getting to be so much money, Tom. It's frightening me.
There's nothing to worry about, love. Everything's going just like I said, isn't it? In 9 months, we've made nearly 30,000. If we hadn't made that sort of money, then you'd have the right to worry.
Yes, I suppose so, but what happens when you're released and they discover that the chickens are laying 5,000 eggs a day?
4 weeks before my release date, I'll drastically reduce the birds' food and water. That'll bring on a premature moult, and egg production will be back to what it was when I took charge of the battery house. Don't you think I'm clever?
Yes, Tom.
How's Foxy getting on?
I don't know how I managed without him.
Don't get too dependent on him. I'll be needing him soon. 6 months, Marion.
I just can't wait. It's still a dream. I used to cry myself to sleep every night when I thought I was losing you for 6 years, and now, well, I see you every day, and we'll be back together soon. And we've money in the bank.
I know, love, I know. And I couldn't have done any of this without you. Did you bring the scrapbook?
Yes. But, Tom, you don't want me to keep it up anymore, do you?
Of course I do. Following Edward Dawlish's career is my favorite occupation.
It all seems so pointless now, Tom. I mean, your sentence has been cut.
Through a stroke of luck which in no way mitigates Dawlish's behavior. What about all the other juries he's swayed? And women waiting, as you might have had to wait, for husbands he's unjustly sentenced.
Oh, the cuttings agency sent this one this morning. I've not had time to stick it in. He's to preside over the Wotan B nuclear power station inquiry.
Well, that is interesting.
Why?
It'll last several months. Which means that he'll be in the same place all the time.
No, Mr. Simons, I can't have you introducing such evidence during the first week. Now, as I said this morning, we'll spend week 1 of this inquiry examining the need by the country for the Wotan B power station. Parliament has given us such terms of reference, so let us enjoy them. And besides, justifying the escape of radioactive iodine from Wotan A on the grounds that it was a small leakage reminds me of the story of the unmarried mother who tried to justify her illegitimate baby on the grounds that it was a very small baby.
But it's gone 9, Edward. Where on earth have you been?
Drinking, my precious. Having a few drinks with the protagonists from both sides. Amazing what a few beers can do. I even saw an industrialist buy a Friends of the Earth campaigner a drink.
Oh, didn't it occur to you that I'd like to hear how the first day went?
Smooth as silk, Carol.
But you never drink with the participants.
Ah, it's not a trial.
Presided over by Judge Edward Dawlish.
Turn up the sound, will you?
Despite earlier forebodings, the demonstrations outside the Newlands Conference Hall, where the inquiry is being held, were orderly and quiet.
Yeah.
Jonathan Lewis sent us this report.
Already at Newlands, the shopkeepers are taking down the boards they nailed across their windows, for the expected trouble simply never happened. When the inquiry opened on the stroke of 10 this morning, Judge Edward Dawlish said that he was to be called Mr. Dawlish or just plain Sir. His easygoing manner, sometimes telling jokes, has done much to ease the background tension, and already he is being referred to as Edward the Peacemaker. Only time will tell if His Honour Judge Edward Dawlish will be able to keep the peace in the long months ahead of the inquiry.
On the industrial.
Well,
I think they're laying it on a bit thick.
well, I think it's marvellous. But why on earth do you insist on undermining your position by saying you're to be addressed as Mr. or Sir?
Well, darling, you don't understand the luxury of not being a judge. You see, I'm going to enjoy this inquiry. People are treating me as a human being, asking me to have a drink with them.
Oh.
And when it's over, I don't have to make the final decision. All I have to do is assemble the evidence for the politicians. I won't even have to send anyone to prison.
I've been a prison governor for 20 years now, Snaith, and had more than my fair share of frustration, but now and again a prisoner passes through my hands who seems to make everything worthwhile. You've been one of those prisoners.
Thank you, sir.
Have you made plans?
I might go into poultry farming, sir.
Oh, well. Well, we've not made much out of it, even with your increased production. I'm sorry that your wife never came to see you in all these months.
Oh, yes, sir.
Well, the very best of luck to you, Snaith. And do read the terms of your license. We don't want you recalled to serve the rest of your sentence.
That won't happen, sir. I promise.
And Dennis said, I'm sorry your wife hasn't been to see you in all these months.
I don't know how you had the nerve, Squire. Straight up, I don't. All them eggs.
And what about me, Foxy? I was the one who had to drive in and out every day.
You could have knocked me down with a feather. You two, man and wife. I expect you made a bit, eh?
Not as much as we could have made if I hadn't been paroled. But enough for immediate expenses, plus a little over.
I suppose you'll close the market stall now?
No, it's yours now, Foxy. Marion's gradually switched over to bona fide suppliers, and it's showing a comfortable profit. The van's yours as well.
The store? Mine? But I couldn't pay you. The stock must be...
It's all yours, Foxy. Marion and I don't want to be bothered with it.
Right. I don't know how to thank this girl, Mr. Snaith. If there's anything I can do...
Yes, Foxy. There is something you can do.
But surely, Daddy, if the criminal division is below strength, why can't you give a definite date?
I'd rather wait until the inquiry's over. It's a matter of a few more weeks, and then Edward will have the thankless task of preparing his report. Announcing his promotion at this stage could be construed as a form of subtle governmental pressure on Edward to influence his recommendations. He seems to be bearing up well under the strain.
He's enjoying every minute of it. The greater the pressure, the more he likes it. Quite a social gathering every night in the pub near the conference hall.
Give him his due. He's taken the heat out of the disputes between all the factions.
I know why you're holding back. You're waiting to see if he manages to complete the inquiry without trouble. Yes?
Please, Caroline, let's wait until it's over.
The last one is Cheltenham on the 10th. He bet a fiver and lost it.
So that's Sandown Park the week before. Goodwood before that. Quite the keen race-goer is our judge.
More than that, Mr. Snaith. I wasn't sure what you'd say about these expenses I've run up.
I gave you a free hand, Foxy. I said stick to him 24 hours a day.
He's been to Paris 2 Sundays running. I couldn't follow him the first time because I didn't have my passport with me. I stayed with him last Sunday.
Paris?
For horse racing. Place just outside Paris. Frog cabs cost a fortune. Chance on it.
Chantilly?
That's the place.
Well. French allow Sunday racing. I'll tell you something, Foxy. He's more than a keen race-goer. He's an obsessive gambler. That's what the psychiatrist said about me when I was on remand. Looks as though we've found Edward Dawlish's Achilles' heel. A moment of truth, love.
You'll never give up, will you?
Never. Hello? I'm terribly sorry to trouble you on a Sunday, but this is the clerk to the justices at Wyvern Cross. Could I have a quick word with the judge, please? No, he's not. Could you tell me where I could get hold of him, please? It is important. His father's stud farm. And the number? Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Goodbye. That was probably his wife. She thinks her beloved husband has gone down to see his father. Hello? They're calling his flight now. Well done, Foxy. You can come home. We've got him, Marion. We've got the bastard cold.
You look tired.
Oh, every man in his car was on the road. This is good. It's the late film in a few minutes, darling. Should we watch it?
How's your father?
It's fine. Why? What's the matter?
He's still riding?
Well, yes, of course. You don't approve of Dad. It's unusual for you to show an interest in him.
There's other things I don't approve of.
What?
Lying, for example. I forced open the drawer in your desk 2 hours ago. I found these. Several London-Paris airline ticket stubs, racing cards for Longchamp, Maison Lafitte, and Chantilly, and a bank statement for your number 2 account.
I suppose if I were to pass some cutting comment about your breaking into my writing desk, you'd get hysterical.
Quite possibly. All those Sundays when you said you were going to see your father, you went racing in France.
Not all of them.
And last year?
About 4 times.
That's in addition to all the meetings you attend in this country.
Does it matter?
Does your career matter?
My career? I wasn't aware that it was my career. I always thought it was something owned jointly by you and your father.
When I think of all the lies and deceit over the past...
Darling, I've never made a secret of my gambling. Only the level. I have hurt no one. I have not even lost money. That bank account has always been in the black.
Oh, I'm too tired to argue. And besides,
Your
that...
pride has been hurt. Yes, it was cowardly of me not to tell you. It's just that lying gradually became easier and easier. I think that's why I've learned to understand the habitual criminal. And now find it impossible to condemn others for their weaknesses. I knew you were bound to find out eventually. All it needed was for Dad to ring up one Sunday. Did he call today?
It's not only my pride, Edward. I've had to sit here all the evening wondering how to tell you and not being able to, because I've been the one made to feel guilty.
I don't understand.
I've had 2 phone calls. One early this morning from the Wyvern clerk.
Yeah?
And one 2 hours ago from one of your father's stable lads. Ben was thrown from a horse and fractured his skull.
Oh, no. I must get down there right away.
It's too late, Edward. Your father died on the way to hospital.
You're bitter, Mr. Rogers.
Oh, thank you, friend. What's that stuff?
A dreadful capitalist drink, Mr. Rogers. So tell me why your what's-the-name party is opposed to the power station.
The WSRP, friend. For every nuclear power station built, 3,000 miners' jobs are lost. Jobs that will have to be reinstated to the workers at the end of the century when the uranium and oil runs out. It is the duty of the WSRP to alert the proletariat to the creeping oppression of...
Your alerting seems to have fizzled out in the case of the Woking Bee power station.
Because Judge Dawlish said he would allow us to speak at the inquiry, to advance a rational argument.
Which you didn't have.
Which we didn't have prepared. The WSRP is a direct action party. We believe in direct action by our members to achieve direct action by the government. Our arguments are carried on our placards and banners. Direct action is a process understood by the masses and sought after by the media.
You mean street rioting, Mr. Rogers?
Orderly demonstrations, Mr. Snake.
Which cost money.
Our active members are spread throughout the country spreading the message. To get them together in one place would cost money. Their fares have to be paid.
What sort of orderly demonstration outside the inquiry hall would £5,000 buy me? Here's the best one. Judge Dawlish refused to comment on the demonstration against him organized by the WSRP, but it was obvious that the events outside the conference hall, including his car being spat on, had shaken him badly. It's not clear why the judge, whose handling of the inquiry so far commanded wide respect, should have suddenly aroused the ire of the WSRP.
Was it necessary to spit on his car?
Excitement tends to carry people away.
Pity the police didn't carry a few of them away.
Oh, they probably will when we get into our stride. You'll have to provide a fund to pay my members' fines if you want us to step up the campaign, Mr. Snade.
There'll be money available, Mr.
And I think how hard I had to work to earn it.
For Tuesday, tomorrow, I want the demonstration kept at the same level as today.
Right.
The same for Wednesday. Thursday, he'll be at his father's funeral, so you can give your lads the day off.
Right.
Will they have the banners ready by Friday?
Yes. This is my design for the main one. Blue lettering on the yellow background. That's the combination that shows up best on colour televisions. Red lettering shows up blurred. Overscan, they call it.
Don't let a gambler gamble with our future. Dawlish is a born loser. Health warning. Every government judge carries a packet. I like that one. What about public address equipment?
Just one loudhailer, that's all we need. Too many people with loudhailers prevent the film sound recordist getting a clean recording. And I can adjust the output so that it's just right for any conditions. A Friday morning is a good times for major demos. Gives the Sunday papers a chance to put their oar in.
You really do know your subject right.
Dawlish will go home Friday evening a sick man. He'll have all weekend to ponder, worrying that there'll be a repetition Monday morning. And then he'll resign.
To Friday morning, then?
I'm sorry, Judge, but look at it. There's no way that this car is going to get to the conference hall. Take the second on the left.
No, wait. Inspector Wallace, it is your responsibility to get me into that hall.
I'm also responsible for your safety and worried about mine. So let's be realistic, Judge. Oh, hell, they've spotted us. Ow!
this car moving, you clown. Oh, hell, they're going to turn us over.
There's no question of your being required to resign, or being allowed to, for that matter. Do you think we would tolerate a situation in which any group of political activists can undermine the judiciary with cant, invective, and street violence?
I've enjoyed the inquiry. Up to now, that is. It seems to me that the judiciary wouldn't be undermined if it wasn't called upon to administer inquiries relating to sensitive political issues.
I seem to remember that the ringleaders weren't so much interested in politics as the fact that you have an interest in horses.
But that's common knowledge.
Which isn't the same as public knowledge, nor is it likely to be. The ringleaders haven't produced a shred of evidence.
Meaning your attitude would be different if they had?
A hypothetical question, Edward.
Which earned a politician's answer.
How are the bruises?
Going down.
What are you going to do about your father's stud farm?
Well, a senior stable lad's looking after things at the moment. I'd like to advertise for a manager. Caroline wants me to sell it.
She's right, of course.
Why?
I think you know the answer to that.
My father put his life into that stud.
One life is enough for any business to claim. Now, have you looked at the morning papers yet?
Yeah, I saw a picture of myself being helped out of an overturned car. That was quite enough.
The same letter has appeared in all editions. The writer wonders whether it is right that known gamblers should hold high office in government and be involved in decision-making in affairs known to be attracting heavy betting. No names, just innuendo. I'm away now. Look after yourself, Edward.
Yes.
And remember what I said. It seems that someone is conducting a vendetta against you.
All right, you've made your point. You've got the inquiry suspended for a few days, you've given him a bad fright, and you had your letter in all yesterday's newspapers. So why not leave him alone now?
His pride's taken a knock, but it's not enough.
Well, that's what you'll have to be satisfied with. There's nothing in today's papers and nothing on the news. It is not going to become the big issue that you thought it was.
I need evidence, something positive.
And even if you found it, what harm could you do him? He's the son-in-law of the Lord Chancellor. They look after their own.
That's where you're wrong. If one of their number falls, they'll abandon him to the wolves without giving him a second thought. And the fact that he's Lord Carthage's son-in-law makes him that much more vulnerable. All I need is something concrete.
I used to ride up here as a boy. Just look at it, Caroline. Isn't it beautiful?
Oh, it's as beautiful as this damned horse is ugly. Oh, and uncomfortable. Oh, still, you mopping ruminant. Oh, the wretched beast keeps twitching.
He probably senses that you can't stand horses. Just look at that sunset. Do you still think my reserve is too high?
Oh, you're impossible, Edward. You're selling the stud farm, not the sunsets.
I'll persuade the auctioneer to throw them in for nothing.
You are in good spirits.
But aren't I always when I made up my mind?
No regrets?
Of course not. Besides, the money will come in useful when it's sold. We'll buy a villa on the Med.
If it sells. Why do you put such a high reserve price on it?
Come on. I'll race you back.
Oh, get on, you wretched beast. Go on, get on. Come on.
Hello, this is Edward Dawlish. I'd like to place a bet, a large one. Do you want my code? Yes, 49D2000. 3:30. Sand Lizard. What odds can you give me for £10,000 to win? Yes, that's right. £10,000. All in, run or not. Will you take it? Yes, I'll be by the phone. Thank you. Onward, Christian soldiers, marching to... Good luck. Dawlish. Good morning, Mr. Byrne. Yes, you've heard about my spectacular bet, then? Yes, of course I know what I'm doing. £10,000 on Sand Lizard. Mr. Byrne, I assure you that I know what I'm doing. Better than you may realize. Yes, that's agreed. Settlement within 72 hours. That's hardly a polite question, Mr. Byrne, but yes, I do have adequate funds should I lose. Thank you, Mr. Byrne. Good day. Well, Edward, you've done it. No turning back now.
Who's that one from?
The auctioneers.
Show me. And in conclusion, we feel that your reserve price is unrealistic at the present time and strongly urge you to revise it if you still require us to achieve a sale. Well, you want to sell the farm, don't you?
Oh, yes, of course I do. It's just that I've no intention of giving it away. I'll find another firm of auctioneers.
Well, you've already had to.
What? Dad put his life into that stub.
Which you can't expect a buyer to pay for.
Oh, it'll go eventually. You know, my clerk was telling me yesterday how Arabs are buying up every acre they can lay their hands on.
It's nice having you back in court. Didn't you ever get fed up with that inquiry just a tiny bit?
No, not even during the difficult time.
Aren't you going to open the other letter? Cravensbrook and Heritage, Commissioners for Oaths. It's no good you're trying to hide it. I can read the envelope upside down. That must be the 10th letter that firm has sent you. Are we suing someone?
No, it's just some law reform issue that one of their partners feels strongly about. I'll get my clerk to deal with
Oh, I'll see to it, love. Make sure you've got all the touring maps together, right?
Okay, darling.
Yes?
Good morning, Mrs. Smith. I remember your face from your husband's trial.
Todd?
Show him in, love. Well, Snaith, this makes a pleasant change, meeting you on your territory. May I sit down? Thank you. Packing? You can't be thinking of going abroad. They should be holding your passport while you're on parole.
What do you want?
Just as I thought.
What do you want?
You're a coward, aren't you, Snaith? Huh? Easy enough to conduct a vendetta against someone through intermediaries and letters to the papers. Quite a different matter when you meet them face to face.
That's all over.
Shut up. What? So you admit there was a vendetta?
How do you know he hasn't got the tape recorder in that briefcase?
Such an idea never occurred to me, Snaith. But then it wouldn't. I haven't got your evil, devious little mind. And besides, it would be better if there's no record of what I have to say to you.
Now, just wait a minute. It's all over now. I've talked Tom out of it.
Will you shut up?
I'm just telling you.
And I'm telling you to keep your stupid mouth shut.
People with manners would never dream of having squalid little arguments in front of strangers. I'm glad I came to see you, Snaith. Firstly, I want to tell you that your filthy little hate campaign against me has failed abysmally, because I am to be appointed to the High Court in the new year.
Oh.
And secondly, I wanted to see for myself the sort of stone you and your cheap tart of a wife choose to live under. And thirdly, I wanted to tell you that if I had my way, you would still be rotting in prison. I also want you to know that at no time did your malicious, cheap stunts ever cause me a moment's concern. Nothing you did in the past hurt me, and nothing you're planning for the future can hurt me. Good day to you both. I hope it rains every day of your holiday. I'll see myself out. It means a few priceless seconds less in your contemptible company.
You heard what he called me. Did you hear what he called me?
He's left his briefcase on the chair.
Who cares about his briefcase? What are we going to do about the name that he called me?
I saw him looking at the chair before he left the room. And it's unlocked. There are letters in here. You know, it's as if he left it here deliberately.
Sit down, Edward. I expect you know why I've summoned you.
Yeah, I think I can guess, my lord.
Of course, this is a disgusting little magazine, but it does have the reputation of being remarkably well informed.
I have seen it before, my lord.
This issue?
Yes.
They've taken a risk, of course, but risk-taking has built their circulation. That's what the editor told me yesterday afternoon. He sat in that chair and assured me that he'd seen the original letters and that they had been used to make their offset lithoplates. He said that there's no question of the letters being forgeries. The solicitors whose notepaper they appear on have refused to comment at this stage.
They're genuine.
Then you are being sued for the recovery of gambling debts amounting to £10,000?
Yes, my lord.
How did the letters fall into the editor's hands?
I went to see Snaith last week and left my briefcase at his house. He returned it 2 days later.
The lock had been forced?
It wasn't locked.
Caroline wants me to pay this debt. That is something I cannot do under any circumstances.
I wouldn't expect anyone to.
She tells me that you have sufficient funds.
Yes.
Then for God's sake, man, why the devil don't you pay it?
Where is Caroline, my lord?
She doesn't want to see you. She's worked hard to help you get where you are, you know.
Yes.
Do you intend repaying this debt before the date set for the hearing? I've had 2 letters typed. The first one is from you to the solicitors. It says that you are settling the account with your bookmaker by return. A messenger can deliver the letter within the hour so that the senior partner can stop the action against you. The second letter is your resignation. It's for you to decide which one you wish to sign.
There it is, Jimmy. Just look at that. What do you think of that one, eh? That's the best sunset yet.
Beautiful, Jack. I mean, Mr. Darling.
You nearly slipped up then, Jimmy boy. Come on, then. We'd better get these 2 into the stables.
Why do we do this every evening, Mr. Darling?
Huh?
Right up here and look at the sunset. I thought you'd have got tired after a week, but it's been 3 months now, ever since you took over.
Because, Jimmy, because. I could start explaining now, and we'd still be here for the sunrise.
Right.
Home, James.
That's what your dad used to say, Mr. Darling.
Were you happy working for him?
Oh, yes.
How about me? You happy working for me?
I think so, Mr. Dawlish. And you?
I'll tell you something, Jimmy. For the first time in my life, I'm master of my own destiny. Does that sound terribly pompous?
Oh, no, sir.
Well, what if it does? I can't think of a better way of putting it. But I miss my wife. God, how I miss her. Come on. Race you back. All right.
That's funny, Mr. Dawlish. There's a light on in the kitchen.
Not only that, there's someone in there. Cooking. Caroline.
You are silly leaving the place unlocked, Edward. Anybody could walk in. It just shows the silly things you do when I'm not around to keep an eye on you.
Jimmy. Yes, sir? Go and make sure we locked the stables properly.
But we did, sir. Okay.
You know, I can't think of what to say.
It's a marvelous stove in here. Does it stay hot all the time?
Oh, yes. It's the original cooking range, not what you're used to.
You look well.
And you look, well, as beautiful as always.
I think I understand now why you did what you did.
Why now? You haven't answered any of my letters.
Well, Daddy and I had tea out this afternoon. He told me about the 2 unsigned letters he placed before you and how you signed both of them. It was then that I realized. Oh, that was naughty, signing both of them, Edward. You know how Daddy has a politician's taste for melodrama. You'd better come in out of the cold and show me how this stove works.
In Vendetta for a Judge by James Follett, Edward Dawlish was played by Bernard Horsfall and Caroline by Mary Law. Tom Snaith, Roger Hammond, Marion Snaith, Frida Dowie, and Lord Carthage, Brian Haynes. Drummond, Manning Wilson, Brunt, Gregory de Paulnay, Foxy, Danny Schiller, Ben Dawlish, Fred Bryant, Miss Jarvis, Brenda Kay, Rudge, Bruce Bennett, Jimmy, Henry Knowles, and Castle, Adrian Egan. The play was directed by Margaret Ettall.